One Piece The Reaper's Arrival Part 4. Bang bang. Guns fired but missed. Just when Colonel Rappa was about to fire again, he was horrified to find that a dark cane suddenly appeared in his field of vision. The next moment, the tightly held pistol was lifted away by a huge force. Then, in another blink of an eye, Lafayette was already in front of him, and he seemed to be silently reciting a countdown. 1, 2, 3. When 3 fell, Lapa felt his consciousness gradually blur, his eyes gradually lost their luster, and he stood there blankly like a robot. Waste! Mikey cursed secretly, and quickly retreated with Shaver while taking out the phone bug. Bulu bulu. Almost as soon as he typed, he was connected. Hey, get all the Marines to come to the escort ship! However, the other party burst out laughing. Haha, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I can't get through without Marine beep. As soon as he finished speaking, the phone was hung up. But it was this short sentence that made Mikey understand everything. Damn it, have other warships been captured? How is this possible? Mikey did not believe in evil and tried to contact the generals of other warships, but without exception, the voices that came from inside were those familiar to him. What made his hair stand on end was that Lafayette had already followed. Where are you going? Damn it! Mikey had never felt so embarrassed. Are these people really the Shinigami pirates? At this time, even he had to start to doubt. It's useless to think about anything. You can't escape, just like Marines on other warships. Lafayette pulled out his cane sword, and the armor color was instantly covered. He stabbed it lightly, but it missed the target. Hey, is this the moonwalk that the captain said? It can indeed fly, but unfortunately, it's only temporary, and I can fly forever. Seeing Mikey stepping on the moonwalk and preparing to escape, Lafayette quickly chased after him with wings on his back. As expected, he is a devil fruit user, so troublesome. Mikey frowned, then suddenly turned around and kicked out with his right foot. Lan Jiao! The air was swept away by huge force, and the vacuum slash burst out and struck towards Lafayette. Quickly cut with one word. Lafayette's body flashed, and even in the air, the sudden burst of speed was difficult to capture with the naked eye. Pooh! When he sheathed his sword again, Mikey's right leg had fallen into the sea. Blood spurted out in an instant, and his body fell rapidly because he could not use moonwalk. At this time, Lafayette flapped his wings and flew across quickly, kicking him onto the escort ship. TSK, I passed out! Luodi looked at Mikey, who was parked at his feet, and shook his head slightly. Then he looked at Lafayette, who had just fallen. This is the case, can it be hypnosis? Lafayette shook his head. Severe pain will make him extremely emotionally unstable. Luodi spread his hands. Okay, then ask the Marine Colonel who was hypnosis. This guy doesn't need to live anymore. With that said, Luodi kicked him into the sea. Mikey, who was almost losing consciousness, felt that his body was sinking. There are indeed devil fruits. Luodi took out the black box from the special password box. Fortunately, the colonel named Lapa knew the password of the box, otherwise he might not have been able to open it so easily. This box is very special. It not only has a layer of sea stone, but also a layer of extremely special metal. In short, it is very hard. Feel the special atmosphere coming from the black box. Luodi was sure that the devil fruit was inside. Putting it away, he looked at the large treasure chests filling the warehouse. There are some special collections and gold and silver jewelry inside. Of course, Bailey also has them, but they are relatively small. After all, the Tianlong people have no other passion for Bailey. As a world noble, they don't lack Pele at all. And devil fruit may be what they are most interested in. Of course, they will not eat it themselves. First of all, the flaws of devil fruit are very obvious. Secondly, they always think that they are extremely noble and devil fruit will stain their blood. Finally, devil fruit is really unpalatable. They usually reward slaves with the devil fruit they obtain. If the fruit has interesting abilities, then those slaves may live longer, but in the end they still cannot escape death. Needless to say, they may have contributed to the Devil Fruit Illustrated book. After all, without their bad taste, where would they be able to find so many devil fruits to observe and study? Tsk, these celestial dragons really know how to enjoy it. Lafayette moved heavy treasure boxes one by one and secretly smacked his lips. At this time, Smanton also came over. He has already eliminated all the Marines on the 5 warships. Captain Luo, I found these things on those warships. Smanton handed the fainted small telephone bugs to Luo. It's very small and has a strange device on its back. This is a surveillance phone bug. Luo frowned slightly, then looked up at the wall and ceiling. Sure enough, there are also surveillance bugs here, and there are more of them, one in each of the 4 corners. It seems that escorting the escort ship of Tianshengzhen is not that simple. Whoever robs Tianshengzhen will be recorded, unless the person who plundered has special knowledge of these escort ships and has the means to interfere with the monitoring of phone bugs. Oh. Luo sneered. It seemed that the Marine headquarters might already know about his robbery of heavenly gold. No matter what, sooner or later we have to confront the world government, it's just that it's a little earlier. Captain, what's wrong? No. That's a surveillance phone bug. After sending the last box of heavenly gold back to the Shinigami, Lafayette came back again. Seeing Luo looking at the ceiling, he suddenly felt a little confused. However, when he saw the phone bugs in the corner, he understood instantly. Yes, as you can see, the image of us seizing the gold in the sky has probably been fed back to the Marine headquarters. Luo casually dropped the phone bug on the ground, flicked his fingers, and the phone bug in the corner was instantly destroyed. It turns out it's used for surveillance. Simonton didn't know much about phone bugs, so he realized it at this time. Then he looked at Luo again. Captain, looting gold from the sky is a big deal. It's better not to expose it. If it is exposed, I'm afraid it will directly attract the attention of the Marine headquarters and even the world's government. What's worse, I'm afraid a general will be dispatched. In fact, his analysis is not unreasonable. Looting the heavenly gold prepared by a country in advance may not do much, and only that country will suffer. However, for someone like Luo to directly plunder the Marine escort ships sent by the world government to escort the heavenly gold, that is no longer a concept. This is simply a slap in the face of Marine and the world government. What's more, these Marines were all killed. If it is reported in the news again, it will really be a battle between weapons. However, Lafayette shook his head. He had other ideas. In the first half of the Grand Line Paradise, there are all kinds of new pirates wreaking havoc, and in the second half, New World, the 4 emperors stand in unison. It's not easy for the Marine headquarters to be caught in the middle. Although the Shichibukai has brought all forces to a certain delicate balance now, the Shichibukai are not restless. Marine does not have any extra generals to send us to take care of us. What's more, we are still in West Blue. After saying this, he paused slightly, and then added another sentence. Of course, if the world government wants to take care of it, Marine headquarters will have to send a general to deal with it, but the probability is very small. I have to say, Lafayette is really smart. The analysis is also very good. Luo clapped his hands, agreeing with Lafayette's statement. Okay, no matter what the Marine headquarters and the world's government think, we should first resolve the matter in the Kingdom of Flowers. After all, that is our original goal. Then he came to the stern deck and looked back from a distance. There seemed to be a row of people standing at the port. One of them seemed to have noticed something was wrong here and was observing with a telescope. Like to peek? Luo pulled out Huangquan and hit a flat casually. Immediately afterwards, a flying slash more than 10 meters wide moved forward at high speed against the sea level. In the sight of the group of people at the port, they only saw a long black light that was getting closer. Until the momentum gets louder, and the momentum becomes more terrifying. Get down quickly! Kai was the first to notice the terrifying murderous intention contained in the light, and he made a prompt decision and immediately threw King Gil to the ground. On the other side, Deputy Pillar Liang Bu also reacted very quickly. While lying down, he also pulled down several people who were closer. Of course, not everyone can respond in time. Several ministers were penetrated by the light. Until the moment of death, they don't know that their upper and lower bodies have branched out. Gil, who was lying on the ground, suddenly felt a stream of heat splashing on his face. He subconsciously reached out and touched it. When he saw what it was, his pupils shrank sharply and his hands trembled slightly. Blood! Turning his head again, he saw a familiar minister again. However, at this time, only the upper body of the minister was left. His eyes were wide open, and he could not rest in peace. And that blood came from this minister! Ah! In an instant, screams resounded throughout the sea. Kai frowned and used his right foot to lift the frightened Gil onto Bua's shoulder. Abu, please take His Majesty Gil out of here first, and notify the other pillars to come over quickly. That flying slash just now was a flying slash that only a swordsman could perform, and the size and power of that slash meant that the attacker must be a top swordsman. Kai knew that before he awakened the power in the blood that the old man Qingjiao said, he would not be able to defeat the swordsman. However, this battle cannot be avoided. Yes, Leader Kai, be careful too. Now Kai is no longer Bu Wu's eldest brother, but the leader. As a subordinate, General Bu carried out Kai's orders unconditionally. TSK, the captain really gave them a blow as soon as he came up. I wonder if they will run away because of fear. Simonton played with the dice in his hand, with a hint of ridicule in his words. We've basically finished running, and there's only one person left at the port. He has a 13 tattoo on his body, so he should be a pillar. Lafayette put down his telescope and talked about the situation in the port. Don't worry, all the pillars will come later, let's go. It's time for us to set off. Under the circumstances, the conversation between Kai and Abu did not escape Luodi's ears. He knows everything. 10 minutes later, Kai looked at the approaching Shinigami, and the strength of his hand holding the sword gradually increased. Veins popped out on his forehead, and his face was stained with anger. That flag. The Shinigami pirates. The culprit that kills green peppers. Qingjiao once said that as a leader, one cannot be emotional, but he couldn't do that. Bang! The excessive anger made Kai burst out with a strange power. The ground seemed unable to withstand the power, cracking rapidly in all directions like a spider web. Martial heel! Suddenly, Kai's body rose into the air, reversed in the air, and his right foot that fell heavily was covered with a thick layer of military color. His target was Luodi at the bow of the ship. Even after 6 years, that face has changed a lot, but Kai, who has read the newspaper countless times, will never forget that he is Shinigami Luodi. Armed colors also have strengths and weaknesses. Today I will show you what the absolute gap is. Luodi's face was calm, and he concentrated all his domineering energy on his right fist, forming an invisible armor, but the power was difficult to conceal. High-end armed color domineering. Luodi raised his right hand and lightly punched the front. Buzz! Before Kai came into contact with Luodi, he was knocked away by an extremely arrogant and powerful force. How is that possible? What kind of power is that? Kai's face was full of disbelief as his body continued to retreat. His right leg, which was wrapped in military colors, was actually experiencing bursts of heartbreaking pain. Weapon colors disabled? Or is the gap too big? As his body passed through the houses, there was confusion in his mind. Simonton pushed up his glasses, his eyes full of shock. Is that what the captain said, a high-level armed color? It can actually knock people away from the air. Lafayette turned his cane unconsciously and muttered to himself. It's not that it's in the air, it's that the armed colors are superimposed to a certain thickness, but we can't see it. However, ordinary people can't understand it at all, and the requirements for their own domineering reserves are also very high. At this time, Luodi pointed to the main gate of the Kingdom of Flowers that was connected to the port, and the corner of his mouth curled up. Don't you still want to take revenge? Just wait at that gate. They should be coming out soon. Lafayette and Smanton looked at each other, not doubting what Luodi said, and spread their wings and flew over. As soon as the two of them walked away with their front legs, Aiko came over from nowhere. Brother Luo-di, I have to participate this time, don't even think about leaving me behind. In the past, Luo-di rarely let her participate in battles because she was not strong enough. But now, with two kinds of domineering power, her strength is far better than before. What's more, when she came out, Winnie gave her an excitement buff, and she almost couldn't help but fight. Well, Luo-di nodded helplessly. Just when Aiko was about to rush out, Luo-di's voice came over again. Wait, do you want to try that? Aiko paused, turned her smart eyes twice, and finally shook her head. It's better not to use it. I don't want to destroy this country. After saying that, Chuifeng and Feishue were all unsheathed, and her figure quickly passed by, using the shaver in the Marine Six style. Because there is so much at stake in heavenly gold. It is also rare for the pillars of the pirate force under the flower flag to gather together. Of course, some of the pillars of the pirate force did not arrive due to some special tasks. But even so, there are now 5 pillars gathered together. First of all, Kai, the pillar of the 3rd generation of Babao Navy 10, is being pushed to the ground and rubbed by Luo-di at the port. The remaining 4 pillars gathered at a bar at the main gate of the Kingdom of Flowers, drinking. They are Cats, the pillar of the Dabao Navy, Holden, the pillar of the Erbao Navy, Kanerji, the pillar of the Sambo Navy, and Glad, the pillar of the Lubao Navy. Look at the arrogance of those Marines. If you hadn't stopped me, I would have killed them long ago. Also, the amount of heavenly gold we hand over every year is of no use. It should be given to those trash Tianlong people. The irritable Cats drank wine, his face already red from the alcohol, expressing his dissatisfaction with the matter of collecting heavenly gold. The kind-faced Connor nodded, but what he said was terrifying. Jia, if I have the chance, I will definitely kill 2 of them to see how their structure is different from ours. Descendants of gods are extremely ridiculous. Seeing that the discussion was getting louder and louder, Holden slammed the wine glass on the table. Please restrain yourself. You can just talk in private. This is not a place under your jurisdiction, and no one will listen to you. If word spreads, who will be responsible for what happens to the Kingdom of Flowers? The atmosphere instantly became depressing. Glade, who had been drinking silently, raised his glass and acted as peacemaker. Okay, a drink will relieve 1,000 worries. Let's all have a drink. Just pretend that what just happened never happened. The big deal. Speaking of this, his voice suddenly dropped. Just get rid of all those people. Among all the heroes, Glide is the most cruel. It is said that he once slaughtered a small town by himself. And silence is a common occurrence for him. Bang! The door was suddenly kicked open. The 4 pillars, including the other people drinking in the bar, looked over at almost the same time. However, the strange thing is, they should have been angry, but they were silent at the same time. Soon someone came to his senses. That's the deputy leader of the Babao Navy, Bowu, and what he's carrying on his back is actually King Gil. Is there blood on King Gil's face? Could it be that someone assassinated him? Think about what day it is today. My guess is that someone probably robbed the gold from the sky, and His Majesty Gil was injured because of it. Suspicions abound. Holden took a sip of wine and then looked at Glade. Get rid of those people and shut them up. Glade laughed ferociously, drew out the sword from his waist, and licked the sword's body with his scarlet tongue. Happy to oblige. 2 minutes later, everything went quiet. The 4 pillars also learned about the situation outside from Bowu's description. The little Luo-di kid is not dead. Holden was very angry. He even destroyed the palace at that time, but he still didn't kill Luo-di. Moreover, he was deceived for 6 years. Unforgivable. Bowu, please send His Majesty Gil back to the palace. I'm going to find that brat to settle the score. Cats, the leader of Dabao Navy, and Kanerji, the leader of Samao Navy, clenched their fists, looked at each other, and said at the same time, We are one of us. We let those little mice escape in the first place. This time we will make sure they never come back. Glade, who was wiping the blood off his sword, suddenly interrupted. Hey, I'm telling you, count me in. I also want to meet the so-called Shinigami pirates. At the gate of the Kingdom of Flowers. Uncle Smanton, Uncle Lafayette. A familiar voice came from behind. Lafayette and Smanton turned around at the same time. Sure enough, I saw Aiko's figure. Miss Aiko, how can the captain be so confident in letting you come over? Ever since that incident 2 years ago, he has been worried about you. Yes, the captain almost cried at that time, haha. Simonton even laughed without any image. Snort. Aiko snorted coldly, and blew the wind and Feishua out of their sheaths at the same time. If you dare to speak ill of Brother Luo, I will settle the score with you when I get back. Look behind you first, they are coming soon. Under the impression of seeing and hearing, Aiko could clearly sense the powerful auras that were gradually approaching. Seeing Aiko's serious expression, Smanton and Lafayette also suppressed their smiles, turned around and looked deeper into the street. Pedestrians were coming and going there, but I didn't see anyone suspicious. Until a minute later. Both of them looked surprised at the same time. It seems that Miss Aiko is becoming more and more proficient in seeing, hearing and coloring. A familiar person finally appeared. The people who came running wildly were none other than the foursome. Because the position where the 3 Aikos stood was really conspicuous. The 4 pillars naturally discovered them immediately. I'll leave these 3 people to you. I'll go find Luo. Holden's target is only Luo. Since Luo is not here, there is no need for him to waste time on the crew of the Shinigami pirates. Of course, Aiko and the other 3 did not stop him. Holden can only hand it over to Luo. This is a silent tacit understanding among several people. Wait until Holden goes away. Lafayette asked first. How to say? Smanton pointed at Katz. Leave that bald head to me. Lafayette nodded. Okay, I don't care, then I'll beat the remaining 2 people. However, before he finished speaking, Aiko slapped him hard on the back with the blade of the knife. Hey, Lafayette, uncle? Where's mine? Why? Lafayette sighed helplessly. Okay, leave the fat old man to me, and leave the last one to you. Let's keep it this way. However, don't show off if you really can't beat him. I don't want to be beaten by the captain. As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed out and went straight to Kannagi. Simonton followed closely behind, transforming into a giant golden eagle, and flew several feathers towards Katz. Glade, the last remaining pillar of the Lubao Navy, walked slowly towards Aiko. Hey, little girl, we are the only 2 left now. What do you think I should do to kill you? Aiko ignored him, and the blowing wind and flying snow were instantly covered with a layer of armed color. Snowstorm. As he raised his hand, the sword energy was vertical and horizontal, cold air overflowed, and 2 slashes mixed with ice-cold air flew out. Swordsman! Glad's pupils shrank sharply. Port! Kai lay dying among the ruins. Rubble covered nearly half of his body. With severe internal injuries and multiple fractures, he could barely move. Luo squatted half-crouched, holding Huang Quan in his hand, watching him quietly. Kai, I can only say that you have no regrets about your grandfather passing away. Rest in peace. After saying that, under Kai Yi's godless eyes, Luo ended his life. Lordy brat, you deserve to die. Lordy brat, you deserve to die. Holden, who was running wildly, could only roar in anger as he watched Luo kill Kai. Faster, if only he could be faster. Unfortunately, there is no if. Luo's right hand trembled slightly, and the blood stains on Huang Quan's blade instantly dissipated. Then he turned to look at Holden and said calmly, The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. That's the case. You don't have to be so angry. After all, isn't death a common occurrence among pirates? Don't worry, I will send you to accompany your old friend later. He may not be able to wait. I really want to see you. Luo slowly stood up and slowly approached Holden. The distance between the 2 people is getting closer and closer, from the original 100 meters to 50 meters, and then. Little Luo, I will definitely make you die here today. Holden finally couldn't help it anymore. He raised his hands and stepped hard with his feet. The ground began to crack. The stones and dust around his feet seemed to be frightened and fled in all directions. Mysterious meaning, wandering dragon palm. The powerful force stirs the air, and the violent wind shadow of a giant dragon seems to be able to swallow everything, and overwhelming pressure pours out. The sound of the strong wind seems to form a dragon's roar, which is ear-piercing and captivating. Little Luo-Di, you were lucky last time. This time, let me see how you hide. Holden roared angrily, and the wind dragon circled and entangled, and as he clapped his palms, it instantly gathered together, opened its bloody mouth and pounced towards Luo-Di. 6 years ago, this move could hurt me, but now it's 6 years later. Your strength has remained unchanged or even declined, but I am constantly getting stronger. Luo-Di walked forward slowly. Even though he was swallowed by the wind dragon, he was still not affected in any way. And this is the application of high-level armed color domineering. The domineering energy all over his body was concentrated in front of him, and the thick invisible armor blocked all the powerful airflow. Luo-Di didn't suffer even a trace of damage. 1 minute later, the dragon dissipated, and Holden, who had spent most of his energy, panted heavily and his hands trembled unconsciously, but the scene in front of him made his eyes widen and he almost forgot to breathe. How is it possible? All the houses within nearly 200 meters collapsed, rubble piled up, and the remaining breeze blew up countless dust. Under such a powerful attack, it stands to reason that Luo-Di should have been seriously injured even if he was not dead. The reality is that he is still intact, and there are no signs of damage even on his clothes. At this time, he was no longer moving forward, but stood quietly on the pile of ruins, his deep eyes reflecting Holden's embarrassed figure. The yellow spring in his hand was at shoulder level, the tip of the knife was facing Holden, and the index and middle fingers of his left hand stood side by side and pressed tightly against the blade. At the edge of Huang Quan's knife, the blood flowing from the index finger soaked its whole body. In an instant, the red and black halos reflected each other, and the strange aura that burst out made people feel fearful. Yang Quan has its own will, and 6 years of quenching has given it extremely powerful power. Next, I will shirkai and let it use its own power to cut this sword, and let you see what it means. Yellow Spring. After saying that, Luo-Di slowly let go of his hand, and Huang Quan still remained in the same position as before letting go, hovering in the air. However, the tyrannical momentum seemed to be able to reach the sky, and the space was gradually affected by it. It seemed that light could not be transmitted, and the entire port began to slowly darken until it was completely engulfed in darkness. The name of this sword, Sunset Huang Quan. Boom! A huge sound came from the darkness that shrouded the port, and the entire island trembled. The sea surface was affected by it, and in an instant the waves splashed, and the huge waves swept away from the island. When it swayed back again, it set off a higher and bigger wave. After a while, when the darkness dispersed again, Huang Quan flew back into Luo-Di's hands. The entire port no longer existed, leaving only a huge pit nearly 10 meters deep, which spread all the way to the main gate of the Kingdom of Flowers before stopping. And Holden has long disappeared. What's going on? Connor, who was fighting Lafayette, felt the ground shake violently, and a huge sound came from the port. The captain should have taken action, but the movement was so loud. It seems I have to end this battle quickly. Lafayette had already guessed it. Immediately, his eyes condensed, and the cane sword was slowly drawn out, and the sword body was instantly wrapped with a circle of armed domineering energy. Shadow slash. Immediately after the sword flash, Connor quickly reacted, but the direction of his defense deviated, and it was completely opposite to the direction of Lafayette's attack. It seems to be working well. The short-term hypnosis causes the enemy to have a perception error, and the duel between masters often happens in this moment. Connor covered his neck and didn't even understand why he didn't block it just now. Damn it, Kanagi was killed. You can fight me and still have time to worry about others, haha, Skyclaw. Simonton spread his wings and suddenly flew into the sky. When he dived down again, a pair of sharp claws were already covered in armed colors. This, combined with his own strength and the huge inertial force generated by high-speed movement, is enough to easily tear the enemy into pieces. Clang! Kannagi held up the knife with both hands to resist with difficulty, but the next moment, two feathers wrapped with armed domineering came towards his face. A soldier never tires of deceit, do you understand? The feather instantly penetrated his head, and the pillar of the Three Treasures Navy was defeated. Other side. Clang! Aiko and Glade are inseparable from each other. Their strength can basically be said to be about the same, and it has always been difficult to tell the winner. The advantages and disadvantages of each are also obvious. Aiko's physical strength is not that of Glade, but because of her ability to see and hear, she can sense the opponent's attack trajectory very well and dodge easily. On the contrary, Glade was hit by Aiko many times, but because of the presence of the armed color, he was not injured. In short, they have different styles, one is more flexible and the other is more fierce. And often people who are aggressive are more likely to have weaknesses. Like now. Aiko discovered the opponent's weakness. That is the position of the left waist, which seems to have been seriously injured, which also caused Glade to be somewhat unable to exert force on the left side. Immediately afterwards, she flashed and came to the left side of Glade, slashing down heavily with flying snow from her right hand. Clang! Glade blocked. But Aiko didn't stop there. She quickly spun her body and stabbed out the air with her left hand. Penetrate. The momentum of the whole body is condensed, and the invisible power burst out, stirs the air and entangles the wind. The powerful attack penetrated Glade's left waist and penetrated him. Kill with one move! At this point, all the pillars stationed in the Kingdom of Flowers were killed. At this time, Luodi had already rushed over from the port at some point. He had a panoramic view of the battles of several people. They have grown a lot in 6 years. It's time to end everything in the Kingdom of Flowers and go to the Grand Route. Malin Vando. Marine Headquarters. A colonel from the headquarters hurriedly knocked on the door of the Sengoku office. Enter. Warring States, who was flipping through documents, stopped and rubbed his tired eyes. This ace is really troublesome. Not only did he refuse to become a Shichibukai, he actually joined Whitebeard. Is the balance of New World about to be broken again? Ace has great potential, and with a bounty of hundreds of millions at a young age, it's hard to imagine where he can go in the future. What's more, there is the strongest man in the world standing behind him to protect him. It was difficult for Warring States not to have a headache. At this time, the colonel walked in with a rare look of panic on his face. While handing a stack of photos and information to Warring States, he was still describing some things. Sengoku Fleet Admiral, something big happened. The heavenly gold in the Kingdom of Flowers was robbed. The Intelligence Department just conducted an investigation based on the images that were fed back, and found that the one who robbed the heavenly gold turned out to be the Shinigami Pirates. People from the group. Shinigami Pirates! Hearing this familiar name, Warring States took the information and paused, then nodded. After the colonel left, he began to read it carefully. The information compiled by the Intelligence Department is very detailed. Above are some screenshots of the battle scenes of various members of the Shinigami Pirates plundering the Sky Gold, and compared it with photos from 6 years ago. A total of 3 members appear in the information. First there is Raptor Smanton and Devil Sheriff Lafayette. They have no obvious changes compared to 6 years ago, except that their bodies are bigger, but they can still be recognized at a glance. From these 2 people alone, it can be determined that it is undoubtedly the Shinigami Pirates who robbed the Sky Gold. And the last one, the captain of the Shinigami Pirates. Shinigami Rodi. Zingwood dragged the 2 photos tightly. Judging from his appearance, he can vaguely capture the familiar shadow of 6 years ago. The face is as sharp as a knife, the eyebrows are set into the temples, the nose is like a bridge, and the eyes are as deep as the abyss. Compared with 6 years ago, he is more handsome and straight, but his aura is also becoming more and more intimidating. Especially those black eyes, which were like abyss. After looking at them for a long time, Sengoku had the illusion of seeing Shinigami. If Luo-di 6 years ago was a sword that needed polishing, then now, the sword has been polished into shape, with a sharpness that is ready to go. Is he laughing? Suddenly, Warring States noticed that in the photo, the corners of Luo-di's mouth were slightly raised, apparently smiling. This made him feel as if he was being watched, which was very absurd. And that smile seemed more like a mockery and provocation. Oh, interesting. Soon, Warring States turned to the end of the information. It was a picture of the outside of a warship. It seemed that due to some kind of malfunction, only half of it was shown. It showed half of the ship and a pirate flag that was familiar to Sengoku. Could it be? Warring States frowned slightly and found a newspaper among the information stacked on the table. Is it really the same? The Megaho pirates, who have gained huge fame not long after their appearance, are actually affiliated with the Shinigami pirates. He still didn't believe it before, but now it seems that everything is true. Supernova Ace was just released on the front foot, and the Shinigami pirates were also born on the back foot. It was really more troublesome than the last. How to deal with it? Looting the heavenly gold is a big deal. Is it going to be like Heavenly Yiksha? Looting gold from the sky is a big deal. It is related to the interests and face of the Tianlong people. Although the Warring States period is Marine Fleet Admiral, he cannot make the decision when it comes to this kind of thing. The one who can really make the decision is the top leader of the world's government, the Five Elders. However, it's time to use their bounty. Warring States quietly stared at a photo on the table, and the room fell into silence for a while. The Land of Flowers. Oyama looked at the photos in his hands and the dense writing in the notebook. The excitement in his eyes could not be concealed. Appeared. The Shinigami pirates appear again. He has been lurking in the Kingdom of Flowers. This is the place where Luo-di disappeared 6 years ago and where he was defeated. But Oyama believes that Luo-di will return here one day. And it turns out that his intuition was right. Not only did Luo-di come back, he also eliminated 2 powerful pillars of the Flower Country pirate force in one fell swoop, the great pirate Holden, who had a bounty of 200 million belly, and Kai, the grandson of Qingjiao, who had a bounty of 150 million. As for how Oyama determined it, it mainly came from the photo he named the Lost Port. In addition to Shinigami Luo-di, the other crew members of the Shinigami pirates also showed great strength in this battle. Devil Sheriff Lafayette killed Kanagi, who had a reward of 80 million. Raptor Smanton killed Katz, who had a bounty of 75 million on his head. Even Luo-di's sister, the 15-year-old girl Aiko, killed Glade, who had a reward of 65 million. Appearing for the first time in 6 years, the Shinigami pirates showed such impressive strength that if reported, it would shock the entire world. And Oyama did exactly that. He passed the photo and the notes he wrote to Morgans on the Grand Route almost immediately. The Shinigami pirates have reappeared after 6 years of absence. All the pillars of the Flower Country have been defeated. Although it is big news, it is only West Blue after all. Shinigami Luo-di, is your future just a little west? Blue? Morgans put down the photo in his hand and let out a long sigh, seeming to feel sorry for Luo-di. As time goes by. In the afternoon, people in the Kingdom of Flowers fell into endless panic. Someone saw what was left of the port was only a huge depression. Some people also saw the bodies of several pillars of the Kingdom of Flowers. And these things spread quickly as people spread the word, and in just half a day, the entire country knew about it. They are full of worries about the future of the Flower Country, and their own future. Flower King's Palace. Luo-di handed the record pointer and the map of the first half of the Grand Route to Lafayette, and then turned to look at Lesia, who had just arrived not long ago. Lesia, how about I leave the follow-up affairs of this country to you? Lesia tucked a strand of purple hair hanging down on her face behind her ears, looked at Luo-di without blinking, and after a long time, sighed. Captain Luo-di, you can really find something to do for me. However, you should know that the power of the Blood Rose alone is not enough to deal with the remaining pirate troops. However, if there are powerful warriors from Elbafut to assist, that will be very easy. There are two words revealed in the words, borrowing people. Of course, Luo Di did not refuse. The next day, the Shinigami sails on the endless sea. Luo Di did not stay in the Kingdom of Flowers for long. As he said, the follow-up matters are entirely left to Lesia. And he also helped contact Elbaf, the giant country of West Blue. Those giant warriors were very enthusiastic. After learning of Luo Di's request, they sent a warship to assist Lesia. Of course, their enthusiasm did not arise out of thin air. Giant warriors all worshipped the strong, and they were impressed by Luo Di's strength. In addition, Luo Di also brought transformation to their country's #1 warrior, and now he is frequently in newspapers and famous all over the world. There is even a chance to catch up with the giant pirates from 100 years ago. This is undoubtedly a huge honor. Captain Newspaper! Luo Di, who was slashing at the bow of the ship, slowly stopped, sheathed Huang Quan and took the newspaper handed by Lafayette. The Shinigami pirates have reappeared, and all the pillars of the Flower Country have been defeated. Which of the two strongest supernovas, Shinigami Rodi and Fire Fist Ace, is stronger? Ah? Does this connect me to Ace? Luo Di looked at the bold characters and felt speechless. In fact, this was done deliberately by Morgans. His purpose was to stimulate Luo Di to go to the Grand Line. This way Luo Di can create bigger news for him. Of course, Ace is a super newcomer who has dominated the news headlines this year. With his appearance, this newspaper will get more attention and more people will buy it. Make money, don't be shabby. Luo Di quickly finished browsing the newspaper. But he discovered that there was no information about him robbing the heavenly gold. Maybe it wasn't photographed. Luo Di didn't believe that Morgans would hide such a big thing. After all, he was a man who was obsessed with pursuing big news, and he could even defy the world government for this. And this is also true. Because the gold in the sky is so important, Gil, the king of the Kingdom of Flowers, blocked the port and the surrounding sea areas, and no one was allowed to enter. Those journalists can only stay in the country of flowers, looking away and sighing. In addition, after Luo Di stole the gold from the sky and sunk all the warships and escort ships, the Marine headquarters also sent people from the branch to finish it off. So no one except the Marine headquarters and the Shinigami pirates knew about this matter. TSK, I wonder what the world's government will do with us. Luo Di shook his head slightly and put the newspaper on the table nearby. At this time, Lafayette came over again, holding 5 reward orders in his hand. Captain, with the bounty order just issued, our bounty has increased a lot. Luo Di glanced briefly. It has indeed increased a lot. His bounty was raised from the original 40 million to 200 million. It is basically impossible to be able to improve so much at once when you are living all over the world. This was mainly because he robbed the heavenly gold. Of course, it was also inseparable from his deeds of killing Qingjiao, Holden, Kai Yi and other powerful men. After all kinds of considerations, Marine headquarters promoted him so much. Then came Devil Sheriff Lafayette, whose salary was increased from the original 20 million to 60 million, which was a huge increase. In comparison, Smanton's improvement is not that big. After all, his bounty is high, which has been increased from 6,000 W to 7,000 W. Then there is Aiko, whose initial bounty is 3,000 W Bailey, which is almost as good as the previous Luo Di. As for Winnie, since she did not participate in the battle, Marine gave her a symbolic bounty of 50 Baileys. But only Luo Di knew that Winnie had great potential. Changing emotions is an extremely rare ability. For example, Perona's negative ghost can instantly cause the enemy to fall into negative state and lose combat effectiveness as soon as it is touched. In the same way, Winnie can also be used in this way, and it can be more comprehensive. In the future, Luo Di will also give her some development suggestions as appropriate. He doesn't want such a powerful fruit to be buried. This fresh newspaper brought a small shock to the world. The amount of Luo Di's bounty made people see the rise of a supernova. With a bounty of 200 million, he can be called a great pirate even in the first half of the Grand Line. Who would have thought that the owner of this reward order is still in West Blue, one of the 4 seas? Of course, many people are skeptical about whether Luodi's true strength can match the figure of 200 million. Among this group of people, the bounty hunter is the craziest. 200 million, that's not a small number. With the thought of finish this job, you will be happy for the rest of your life. Many bounty hunters set their sights on Luodi's head almost at the same time. Because of this, the entrance to the Grand Route, Twin Capes, became particularly lively in the following days. New World. Today it is the Four Emperors. Whitebeard Pirates. Whitebeard, who was in the process of infusion, turned over the newspaper in his hand, then looked at Ace not far away, and called him over with a smile. "Gla la la la, Ace, look at this, Shinigami Luodi, the person who died 6 years ago has actually appeared again, and some people are even comparing you to him." Ace took the newspaper and read it. After a while, he also laughed. "Dad, actually I have seen this man in the newspaper before. I felt it was a pity when he died. Now, since he is not dead, I would like to meet him if I have the chance. As for comparing me with him, Ace is a very belligerent person, but he will not challenge those who are weaker than him. Otherwise, he would not specifically challenge Whitebeard, who is known as the strongest man in the world. He has too little experience now and still needs to grow. When he comes to New World and is strong enough, then I will naturally compete with him." The red-haired pirates. Shanks was surprised when he got the newspaper. There is nothing more incredible than a person who is determined to be dead alive. Of course, most of the newspaper reports at that time were incorrect. After all, Luodi's body was not photographed. But this is fine. Isn't this the precursor of the arrival of the New World? Driven by the tide of the times, this sea will eventually be unable to calm down. Luffy, are you ready? Big Mom Pirates. Parasparrow, which of your daughters should I marry to him? Auntie looked at the newspaper and was already deciding on Luodi's future partner. Recruiting a son-in-law is also an old tradition of the Big Mom Pirates. Beast Pirates. Teacher Kaido, who loves to drink, smashed the bottle on the ground. Resurrection from the dead? How ridiculous, Kid Luodi. When you come to New World, I'll see how you come back from the dead. As the strongest creature, Kaido dismisses such rhetoric. Dressrosa. Doflamingo's fingers kept twisting and controlling his clone. There were pieces of shredded paper on the ground. Fufufu, come to New World, Shinigami Luodi. More than 10 days later. News about the Shinigami pirates gradually faded out of people's sight. They seem to have fallen into silence again. There is speculation that they may not appear again until the next 6 years. And some people speculate that they will head to the Grand Line soon. The Grand Line is a ring-shaped ocean area that intersects perpendicularly with the Red Earth continent. It is also the most dangerous waterway in the world. Together with the Red Earth continent, it divides the world into 4 seas, namely the East, West, South and North Seas. However, due to the existence of the Windless Zone, people from all over the world who want to enter the Grand Line can only pass through the Upside Down Mountain. The Upside Down Mountain is the starting point of the Great Route. After that, you can enter the first half of the Grand Line. Some people call it a paradise, and some people call it the Pirates' Graveyard. At this time, the Shinigami has arrived at the foot of Upside Down Mountain. Smanton, turn around and see the water gate. We must drive in and go upstream in the direction of the current, so that we can go straight to the Upside Down Mountain. Lafayette stared straight ahead and commanded Smanton at the helm. Lafayette, shut up, I've been to the Grand Line, I don't need you to teach me. Simonton steered the rudder vigorously. Because the water flow was too turbulent, it became very difficult to turn the direction. Fortunately, the Shinigami is made of atom wood and is very sturdy and durable. Hey, Uncle Smanton, turn the steering wheel quickly, we're about to hit you. Aiko stood under the mast and was almost frightened. Because the current was too strong, the Shinigami was also moving quickly. When the ship was almost entering the water gate, a problem arises. Even though Smanton adjusted the direction as much as possible, there was still a slight deviation, and the result was that half of the ship's bow was aimed at the Red Earth wall. Seeing that the bow of the ship was almost hitting the Red Earth continent, Luo Di suddenly moved, his Shinigami robe was added to his body, and he flew straight forward. "Wake it up for me!" He was seen suspended between the bow of the ship and the red earth wall, facing the Shinigami directly, and then he grabbed the bow of the ship with both hands, his arms filled with the power of the Shinigami, and the ship's hull actually deflected directly along with his power. "Let's go!" When the Shinigami entered the water gate and went upstream in the direction of the current, Luo Di returned to the ship again. "Call. Drive in safely." Almost everyone breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Lafayette adjusted his hat, and there was a rare hint of rebuke in his words. "Fortunately, there is a captain, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Simonton, look at what kind of ship you are sailing!" Aiko, who had just put in the sail, also put his hands on his hips and said angrily, "Yes, Uncle Smanton, you scared me to death just now." Simonton scratched his head and then retorted, "TCH, Lafayette, it's not you chattering there that affects me. Otherwise, how could I make such a mistake with my sailing skills? I am a navigator. What happened to you under my command?" At #and%. The boat of friendship capsized at every turn. Seeing the curse words being uttered, Luo Di walked helplessly to the mast. At this time, Winnie was holding the mast. Her body was shaking slightly. Her face was a little pale. She was obviously very frightened. "Now, Winnie, help them remove the fire and try your ability by the way." Luo Di pulled her up, and then gently pushed her towards the quarreling Smanton and Lafayette. Okay. Winnie responded, walked towards the two of them in small steps, and then reached out to touch their arms. Immediately afterwards, I saw. The two people who were still arguing fiercely stopped almost at the same time. There was no wave in their eyes, and the anger that had been expressed before was gone. "Hey, what's going on? Why don't I have feelings for you anymore?" Lafayette looked at Smanton like a robot, without any emotion even when he spoke. "Well, I don't have feelings for you anymore either." Simonton nodded, agreeing with what he said. Aside, Luo Di nodded secretly. Now it seems that Winnie's ability is not weak, but that he is too strong. No wonder he had no impact before. Then he looked at Winnie again and asked, "Do you know how long it takes for them to recover?" Winnie thought for a moment and then spoke after a while. "The emotionless state should last 10 minutes, and then you can recover." Luo Di nodded. "After all, I just ate the fruit not long ago, so it's not bad to be able to do this." "Okay, you go into the room and rest. I see you don't look good." After Winnie slipped away, Aiko came to Luo Di with some difficulty. The boat was going upstream, so it was really difficult to walk in this situation. "Is that Sister Winnie's fruit power? It's so powerful!" Aiko's face was filled with wonder. "It's really amazing how two people who are arguing can calm down at the same time. Do you want it too? Actually, I still have a devil fruit here, but if you eat it, you won't be able to use that move in the future." With that said, Luo Di took out a black box, which contained the devil fruit. This is one of the heavenly gold handed over by the Flower Country. But Luo Di hasn't opened it yet. I don't know what kind of fruit is inside. Humph, I won't eat it. Aiko understood the meaning of Luo Di's words and shook her head firmly. Luo Di nodded, he thought so too. If Aiko eats it, the power in his soul cannot be exerted on her. And that part of the power also has the characteristics of the Shinigami's side feedback. Although the effect is less than 1%, it can add up to a lot, and one day Aiko will become very powerful. Wait, it's over! Luo Di, who was about to say something else, suddenly changed his expression, wrapped his body around Aiko in an instant, and then flew into the sky. Almost at the same moment, the Shinigami reached an extreme position with the current, and was thrown out by the inertia. Because of the waves, the ship's hull suddenly turned a corner and temporarily flew into the air. Bang! When it fell heavily, it splashed countless waves and was surrounded by clouds and mist, just like being in a fairyland. Luo Di and Aiko also returned to the deck. Needless to say, Smanton and Lafayette easily escaped the impact by relying on their human-animal forms. However, Winnie is hard to say. Cole, go see Winnie! At this time, The Shinigami completely entered the lower river channel and was traveling extremely fast. If it hits something, the consequences are unimaginable. And Laboon is that unstable factor. Whether ships from all over the world will encounter it depends on luck. As the clouds and fog become thinner and thinner, gradually, you can see the twin capes at the bottom of Upside Down Mountain, which are also the entrance to the first half of the Grand Line. As far as he could see, there was only the endless sea. Under the circumstances, Luo-Di had never sensed the existence of Laboon. It seems that Laboon is gone. The Shinigami should be able to pass smoothly, but there are 3 ships docked behind a reef not far from Twin Capes. It's not that big, just a small boat 7 or 8 meters long. There aren't many people on it. There are only 4 people in the 3 boats combined. MD, if that weird old man hadn't been guarding Twin Capes, why would we have to wait in this crappy place? Also, let me tell you, it's been almost half a month. Apart from the sea breeze and the scary big strange whale, we haven't even seen the Shinigami pirates. I think we should just forget it. Willie patted his belly and complained. Bang bang. Look, I've lost a lot of weight. Were knocked on his head, looking like he hated iron. Whaley, how many times has my brother told you that as a man, you must be able to endure, no matter it is good or bad, whether it is comfortable or uncomfortable, you must be able to endure it. Douglas MacArthur once said that tolerance does not mean being humble, but having peace of mind. You have to immerse yourself in it, accept it, and tolerate it, so that you can. It can be tall. Justin on the side felt veins popping out on his forehead when he heard this, and he finally reached the limit of his endurance. Suddenly, he punched the rock in front of him hard. Will, Lousy has really had enough of you. You like to endure, don't you? My fist is big and hard, which can just test your endurance. When he raised his hand again, he saw a huge fist mark left on the rock. Galoo. Terrible, endure. Will swallowed and waved his hands hurriedly. Brother Justin, I know I'm wrong, so you just think I'm farting when I say it. Well, I'm impatient and you're going to do it yourself. I'll slap myself twice. That's the end of it, right? As he said this, he really slapped himself twice, and the loud snap sound showed his sincerity. Snort. Justin gave him a cold look, and then said no more. Seeing that he had no intention of taking action, Weir secretly rejoiced. After he stopped, he leaned into Whaley's ear and spoke much softer this time. Veery, have you seen that this is the power of forbearance? Even Justin has to step up to the pole to obey me. Have you seen how powerful forbearance is? So you kid must learn from my brother. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by a dull voice. Coming. Send, who had been silent all this time, suddenly put down the telescope in his hand. He saw it. The pirate ship that just sailed out of the clouds was undoubtedly the ship of the Shinigami pirates. He had seen that flying pirate flag several times a day for the past half-month, and it was almost engraved in his mind. Justin licked his lips, the big knife in his hand was already thirsty. After nearly half a month, we have finally waited. Will put his hands on his hips and looked embarrassed. See, this is forbearance. Some bounty hunters couldn't sit still after staying here for 2 days, and the rest left after 7 or 8 days. In the end, only us, these 2, were left. 100 million, no, the bounty of nearly 400 million will belong to us, right? Willie was twirling his fingers on the side, his wise eyes full of desire. For 400 million, how much meat can you buy? A waste. A mess. Justin clenched his fists and stared at the 2 men fiercely. Listen carefully, I can't spare you if you dare to cause trouble this time. Shh. As the squad leader, Sen raised his right hand to signal them to shut up. Justin, is the submarine assembled? Justin pointed at the iron lump above the water and said dissatisfied. The assembly is complete, but this thing can only be used once and can't be driven far. I really don't know why you spent 5 million Baileys to buy it. Sender stared straight ahead. The purpose is to catch them off guard. Such a big fat sheep cannot let them escape. Well, they are coming down soon, so we should take action. Immediately, the four people pried open the iron knot and jumped in together. But they didn't know that all their actions were seen by Luo Di. The lighthouse is the only building in Twin Points. Kunokas, the ship's doctor on Roger's ship, is stationed here and also takes care of Laboon. He usually sits in front of the lighthouse and reads the newspaper. Occasionally, when young pirates from all over the world ask some questions, he will kindly explain them. Of course, he will also tell them the horrors of the Grand Line. Except for his fierce appearance and strange hairstyle, this old man is still very good. Another ship carrying dreams. Kunokas shook the newspaper and squinted at the pirate ship that had just sailed into the sea. He had also stayed on a pirate ship for 3 years before. It was a journey full of excitement and adventure, and it was also the happiest time for him. So every time a new person goes to sea, he will sigh. The Shinigami, which had just rushed out of the water gate, had no sail, so its speed slowly slowed down. Come to shore! Immediately under the command of Luo Di, the Shinigami raised its sails again and finally docked under the lighthouse. Old man, I heard that you once opened a clinic here before, so your medical skills should be very good. Luo Di put his hands on the fence and looked up at Kunokas, with a smile on his lips. He is right, the clinic was opened a long time ago. Kunokas put down the newspaper slightly and turned his head to look at Luo Di. Any of you are injured? His eyes were still fierce. Luo Di turned around and entered the room and took out the pale Winnie. She is not in a good condition and may have to trouble you. Of course, although we are all pirates, the medical fee will still be given to you. As soon as he said this, Kunokas suddenly smiled. It was very short, but it was still catchable. Then he shook his head slightly. Principled pirates like you are really rare. Okay, today I will fulfill my duties as a doctor. Bring the little girl up and let me take a look at her. The corners of Luo Di's mouth rose. Then he placed Winnie in the lighthouse and asked Aiko to help. Then he walked out of the lighthouse. And next, it's time to deal with a few nuisance bugs. They are coming, prepare to take action. At this time, Lafayette and Smanton were back to normal. However, because they calmed down, the two of them no longer had that anger. Moreover, their relationship was already very good, but it was too dangerous at the time. Leave it to me. Simonton played with the dice in his hand, came to the guardrail beside the ship, and quietly stared at the calm sea. But there was a simple submarine driving slowly under the sea. I don't know if there is some kind of malfunction, but there is a strange crunching sound during the operation. We're here, you can rush forward. Sen saw the huge ship above his head through the simple exterior mirror and waved to Justin. Pooh! Under Justin's control, the submarine, which had not dived very deep, suddenly rushed out of the sea. Then the hatch opened, and the 4 bounty hunters climbed out one after another, looking a little embarrassed. At this time, Smanton lightly jumped down and trampled several people under his feet. The huge force made them unable to move. A slightly joking voice came from his mouth. Bounty hunters, right? I wonder what you are capable of. How dare you come to trouble us? Damn it! With half of his face pressed against the rusty iron wall, Sen tried his best to break away, but found that he couldn't break free. The person stepping on him was like a mountain, which made him feel desperate. Did he really hit the iron plate? Did he really hit the iron plate? Sender didn't believe it. Whaley, why are you still standing there? Hurry and throw him away. Yes, Willie is the trump card in his hand. He is born with supernatural power and has amazing fighting power. He can easily smash a boulder as big as a person. The only drawback is that my brain is not working well, and there is nothing but meat every day. But this kind of fool is also the best to control. As long as you defeat him, I will give you a roomful of meat. And this sentence really stimulated Willie. Meat, I want to eat meat, I want to beat you. Meat is his motivation. The next moment, Willie's eyes were filled with desire, his huge palms supported the hatch cover, and his body slowly stood up. And Smanton, who was stepping on him, looked startled. What a terrifying power! The next moment, without any preparation, Smanton was lifted away by Willie and rushed into the sky like a meteor, I'm rubbing it so hard. Luo Di stood quietly on the shore, and the arc of his head raised became wider and wider. It must be 300 to 400 meters high. Looking from a distance, only a small black dot can be seen, which shows how high Smanton flies. However, Smanton is a user with fruit abilities after all, so it should be fine and he will be able to fly back later. Of course, it is not the kind of flying that falls. This world is really full of people. Luo Di secretly clicked his tongue. Then his figure flashed, and the next moment he was on the Shinigami. Almost at the same time, a rope with an iron hook flew up at the right time, as if just to wait for Luo Di. Luo Di subconsciously grabbed it and moved his gaze downwards. Hey, you guys, are you planning to hijack the ship? Sure enough, it was those bounty hunters who lost it. At this time, Lafayette came over swinging his cane. Captain, why don't you just hand them over to me? Look, Smanton can't even see his shadow now. He's really embarrassed. A lot has changed in 6 years. Today, Lafayette and Smanton have a vague feeling of besties, and they both love to belittle each other. However, in terms of overall strength, Lafayette is still superior. Let's get some information first. If it's useless, just deal with them. Luo Di didn't care, but if he dared to care about his head, he had to be prepared to die. The conversation between the two also made Sen below more and more angry. Whaley, kill them and I'll give you a boatload of meat. Meat! From a house to a boat. Willie was swallowed up by desire again. He stepped hard with his feet and the entire submarine sank downwards. In the end, although he jumped on the boat, he suffered a lot from the other 3 bounty hunters. I'm stuck by the door card, Gulu Gulu. Saved. The unlucky guy Justin couldn't believe that he died in such a painful way. The submarine worth 5 million Bailey was too old, and the watertight door often broke down. But this time, it couldn't be pushed at all, and half of his body was stuck inside. When the seawater filled the control cabin below, he followed the submarine and slowly sank to the bottom of the sea. But his last thought was if God gave him another chance, he would definitely tear that scumbag Sender to pieces. Either don't buy it, or if you want to buy it, just buy it, but that bastard Sender bought such a low-quality thing just to save money. On the other side, they saw that Will and Send had arrived at the bottom of the Shinigami, and were preparing to climb up. Aboard the Shinigami. Meat. Whaley patted his huge belly, stared at Luo Di with red eyes, then opened his hands, and immediately made a tiger pounce. Hey, it seems he is targeting me. Luo Di shook his head. Originally, he wanted to hand this person over to Lafayette, but now it seems that he has no choice but to do it himself. Lafayette, leave this guy to me, and leave the next 2 to you. The reason there were 2 was because Luo Di already knew that an unlucky guy had drowned. Lafayette said yes, and jumped into the sea. Almost at the same time, Luo Di also moved. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed Willie's big face. Quite strong! That momentum made Luo Di slightly stunned. Immediately after the power of Shinigami was injected, he exerted force with his right hand at the same time, throwing Verina's huge body into the air. Shave. Instantly following up, Luo Di's right hand was already covered by an invisible layer of armed color. A punch blasted out with a roar. Whaley's belly was sunken downwards in an extremely exaggerated manner. Then he arched his body and flew back at high speed. Swish, swish. From a distance, his fat body swayed up and down on the sea's surface like water, until it gradually sank hundreds of meters away. This move is called repaying the other person's life with his own way. As high as Smanton flies, Vale floats as far as he can. Captain, where are those people? At this time, Smanton finally flapped his wings and rushed back. It was obvious from his expression that he was very angry. Luo Di pointed to the sea in the distance. The man who beat you up has already sunk into the sea. If you rush over now, you might be able to see him again, and the others should be coming up soon. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 figures flew up, and after a while they hit the deck heavily. Hey, Smanton, you're back. I thought you fell into the sea. Lafayette landed on the deck, and the huge wings behind him slowly retracted. All right. Luo Di waved his hand to signal them to stop arguing, and then looked at Will and Send, who were lying on the ground a little dazed. All hypnosis? Lafayette nodded. Luo Di stepped forward and asked, Are you organized? We were originally bounty hunters from Baroque Company, Limited. We heard about the Shinigami pirates more than 10 days ago, so we broke away from the organization and came here to ambush them. After taking the bounty, we were ready to quit. Baroque Works. A look of surprise flashed in Luo Di's eyes. Isn't that a secret criminal group formed by one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Shah Crocodile? The Baroque Working Society covers many fields, and one of them does include earning bounty. This branch is basically composed of a large number of bounty hunters. Their gathering place is a small town called Whiskey Peak. The island where the town is located is called Cactus Island. But Luo Di is now thinking about whether to go there or not. After all, once he goes. In fact, starting from the upside-down mountain, there are 7 magnetic forces extending out. You can choose any one at the beginning, but no matter which island the magnetism starts from, once you choose it, you cannot change it. You can only go one island at a time along the channel. Finally, these 7 routes will converge to the Sabeti Islands. This also means that if Luo Di goes to Cactus Island, the subsequent navigation route will basically be determined. Should we go or not? In fact, Luo Di himself didn't really want to go. Based on the information about the Grand Line provided by Lesia, Luo Di has already learned part of the route. And some of the strange islands that those routes pass through made him even more interested. Among them is an island called Whirlpool Island. Just like its name, that island is located in the deep-sea whirlpool. Because of a special magnetic field, the island was not swallowed by the sea even though it was below the sea level. Luo Di thought for a long time and finally decided to go to Cactus Island. He had several important things to do. First, he needs to take Crocodile's position as 7 warlords of the sea so that he can enter Impel Down later. Of course, if the world government disagrees with the robbery of heavenly gold, let's talk about it separately. It will just be more troublesome, but he still has the ability to enter the Impel City. Secondly, before Audrey went to sea, Luo Di told him the news about Broggy the Red Ghost and Dongli the Blue Ogre. At this time, he must have arrived at the small garden and had several fights with the 2 very stubborn Elbaf soldiers. Therefore, Luo Di also wanted to take a look and maybe run into Audrey. The last step is to go to Sky Island and defeat Enel. Needless to say, Enel's strength is the strongest Logia Thunder Fruit, plus the Heart Network with extremely wide coverage. As long as he masters the weapon colors proficiently and develops the fruits, not to mention the Emperor level, the potential of the Emperor's deputy will definitely be there. As for those magical islands, let's wait until he circles the Grand Line for the 2nd time. I made a decision in my heart. Then Luo Di asked again. Do you have the Cactus Island record pointer on you? Will and Sen shook their heads at the same time. Well, it's over now. Without the record pointer, all the previous ideas were empty talk. Luo Di only had 2 record hands on his body. One points to an island called Bucksnow. If Cactus Island is full of bounty hunters, then Bucksnow Island is full of pirates who have lost their fighting spirit. The other one points to an island called Carnival Island. Even Lesia doesn't know the information about that island because the person who sells the pointer has never revealed anything about that island except the name of the island. Information. No, even if you don't have the record pointer of Cactus Island, you should have the pointer of other islands, right? At this moment, Luo Di remembered that sailing on the Grand Route could only rely on record pointers, and the 2 bounty hunters in front of him must have record pointers. Will shook his head blankly. The record pointer is on Justin, but we really don't have it on us. Forehead. Luo Di glanced at the sea without any waves, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Justin is already cold, and the cold is very uncomfortable. Don't even count on recording pointers. So can you contact the other bounty hunters on Cactus Island? As the captain of the bounty hunter team, Sen nodded and took out a phone bug from his pocket. Okay, Contact everyone you can and tell them that you have captured Shinigami Rodi, but all the ships have been destroyed due to the battle, and you are in urgent need of help, and promise to give them a share of Bailey. This is the so-called casting a wide net to catch as many fish as possible. If you contact 1 or 2 people, they may not believe you, but if you contact a dozen or 20 people, someone will believe you. Then Sender followed his orders and started contacting other bounty hunters like a robot. In the sea not far from Upside Down Mountain, a small black sloop sailed quickly. And there were 3 people standing at the bow. They are former members of CP9 in the CP organization. Because they have suffered some injuries and are older, they now serve as instructors of the CP Special Training Department. There are 3 major organizations in the world government: Marine Headquarters, Impel City and Judicial Island. The CP organization is the secret intelligence agency under the Judicial Island. Among them, CP1-8 are ordinary intelligence departments, which are set up by the world government all over the world. There are also CP organizations on the surface. CP9 is equivalent to the Secret Service, responsible for espionage and assassinations, and only a few people know about it. CP0, on the other hand, takes orders directly from the Celestial Dragons and is a CP organization that is superior to CP1-9. Dale, Hender, we haven't received a task from above for 2.5 years. This time is really strange. The speaker stood at the front, a man wearing a white mask and a white coat. He was very tall, about 4 meters tall, and had a long dark red sword with a scabbard on his waist. And his status is also the highest among the 3. The former CP9 captain, Hurst, is not only the 6th form of Grandmaster Marine, but also a veritable swordsman. And his sword also has a great background, a sharp sword with 21 skills, named Bloody. Yes, cough, but I have also read the information about the Shinigami pirates. Many people are dismissive of them, but their strength cannot be underestimated, Deller, who is nearly 60 years old, is really in bad health. Let me tell you something and cough. The cause of all this is not his physical aging, but the poisonous gas explosion he encountered while performing a mission more than 10 years ago. To be honest, they are so courageous. They dare to touch the gold in the sky. It's no wonder that 5 elders contacted us. Among the 3, Hender is the youngest. He was once known as a genius. Unfortunately, now that his right leg has been completely severed, it stands to reason that his strength may not even be half of its original strength. But the more talented a person is, the more he can break out in desperate situations, and Hender is such a person. Hester stroked the bloody hilt with his right hand and stared forward, the coldness in his eyes making people shudder. No matter what, they won't live to see the sun tomorrow. Even though they are no longer members of CP9, they still obey the orders of the world government unconditionally. Twin Points. Luodi plans to stay here for 2 days. According to Weir, it will take at least a day for the group of bounty hunters at Whiskey Peak to arrive. Moreover, they had just experienced an exciting cross-mountain march and needed a break. However, Winnie's physical condition is really bad. I wonder if Enel's Thunderfruit can stimulate cell activity through electric shock, thereby slowly strengthening the physical condition. If it can work, I must let Winnie try it. According to Winnie, there are 3 ways to trigger emotional fruits: touching the body, looking at each other, and controlling thoughts. In addition to touching the body, the other 2 types of physical exertion are huge, and they also have an impact on the length of the triggering time. Touch can be maintained for a longer period of time, while gaze and thought control decrease in sequence. In fact, each fruit's ability has its obvious advantages and disadvantages. Let's compare the childlike fruit with the emotional fruit. The disadvantage of the childlike fruit is that it can only be triggered by touching it, and the ability will be released when the user is frightened. The advantage is the persistence of the ability. As long as the person with the ability is not frightened, its effect will always exist. The emotional fruit is different. The disadvantage is that it does not last long, but the advantage is that it can be triggered by thoughts or even eye contact. Of course, if the emotional fruit awakens, it will be an extremely abnormal existence. How terrifying is it to permanently change your mood? People with abilities can even create a super kingdom that is absolutely obedient to them, relying on the emotion called worship, admiration, and trust. And this kind of thinking can also be diverged, and it seems feasible to control fierce beasts. After all, the brain of a beast is very simple. As long as it is tamed, its loyalty is extremely high, and there is basically no possibility of betrayal. It's night. The moon and stars are sparse. The full moon shed a little light and cast a silver curtain on the sea. In the distance, a black boat made ripples, ruining this beautiful scene. Standing on the top of the lighthouse on the left side of Twin Capes, Luodi held up the roof with his yellow spring, his eyes slightly closed, as if he was about to fall asleep. Ha! There are people who came here specifically at such a late hour. I'm afraid the person who came here is evil. Luodi opened his mouth slightly and yawned, and the corners of his eyes became a little moist. In fact, at this time of year, he would look at the bright moon in the sky alone and remember the past. Then he will fall into a deep sleep. What a coincidence! Just as he was about to fall asleep, someone came. 3 of them are not weak at all. They are even stronger than the green pepper cone from the Kingdom of Flowers. The Shinigami fruit is half awakened, and Luodi has touched the soul realm. He can judge part of the opponent's strength based on the power of the soul. It shouldn't be from Crocodile. His men are not that strong yet. Could they be bounty hunters from other places? With curiosity, Luodi slowly stood up and stretched his muscles a little. Other side. Hender looked at the confused figure on the lighthouse through the mask and murmured. Discovered? Dela coughed Kaido. Ahem, it should be. Hester stared quietly ahead, his dark eyes as deep as abyss. He was discovered, and I can feel that he is coming soon. Hurst meets when say hockey. Naturally, he knew Luodi's every move. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, Luodi also moved. With his Shinigami robe on his body and black smoke clouds surrounding him, he just walked in the air, looking like a god under the moonlight. Hender was a little shocked. Is that moonwalk? Of course, it's not that moonwalk itself is shocking, but why would a non-marine moonwalk? Hester glanced at him and said coldly, It seems that you have lived a very prosperous life in the past 2.5 years, and you have even forgotten the importance of intelligence. In fact, Luodi's Shinigami form was published in a newspaper 6 years ago. Being able to fly has become a major label for him. Deller put his hand into the mask, covered his mouth, and whispered. Ahem, Shinigami Luodi has fruit abilities, and the ability to fly is also the ability given to him by the fruit. As for what kind of fruit it is, there is no record in the Devil Fruit Illustrated book. I think, it should be an undiscovered fruit. Hender was originally scolded by Hester, and was a little unhappy, but now he directly pointed the finger at Luodi. TCH, he's so lucky. Without that fruit, he's nothing, so why do we need to do anything? Hello? At this time, without the 3 of them noticing, Luodi suddenly appeared in front of Hender. Didn't anyone tell you that luck is also a part of strength? Moreover, you may not know that I am a person who has been wandering around the door of hell. As he said this, he saw a flash of cold light, and Huang Quan was already unsheathed. However, that sharp knife was blocked by another bloody long knife slashed from one side. The sound of the huge collision continued to spread, causing a wave in the calm sea surface, and the strong air flow from the 2 knives that followed each other blew the clothes. However, this sword has already distinguished the superiority. A huge wound was cut on Hender's right shoulder, and blood spread to his feet. The speed of the knife was so fast that the pain slowly came back until Luodi closed the knife. Hiss. Hender clutched his shoulders and took a breath. It hurt too much. It reminded him of the time when his right leg was cut off. It hurts the same way. So strong! Hester's right hand was shaking slightly. Although he was left-handed, he had been practicing holding a knife with his right hand for 2.5 years. How could there be such a big difference? Ahem. Dyla still covered his mouth, because his mood swings were too violent, and he couldn't help coughing again. Tisk, tell me, Who are you? Luo Di retreated a few positions and just floated on the sea, watching the three people quietly. However, the three of them didn't want to say anything more. The intense pain stimulated Hender, and he took the lead in attacking. Lan Jiao! I saw his body suddenly leaping into the air, his only remaining foot driving the air, and vacuum slashes were scattered out one after another. Blood Moon Slash! Hester followed closely behind, with a bloody sword wrapped in a layer of armed domination in his hand, and a bloody slash was struck simultaneously with his raised hand. Shaving Collapse of the Mountain! Deller first jumped into the air on Moonwalk, and then his body turned into an afterimage. The next moment, he kicked Luodi's head with his right foot with extremely strong impact. The three attacked almost simultaneously. But there was a smile on the corner of Luodi's mouth, no panic at all. Well, it's like this, then I'll let you see what it means fear from the soul. The words fell. Countless black smoke clouds surged out of his body, expanding while blocking all attacks. Deller was even thrown away by the strange smoke cloud, and his right foot suffered a backlash. All the returned power penetrated the thin layer of armor, and his leg bones were almost shattered by the shock. It wasn't until he flew 20 or 30 meters away that he fell heavily into the water. But no one paid attention to him. What is this? Hester and Hender had been shocked and lost their minds at this time, and Yuchi's trembling feeling from the depths of their souls was tormenting them all the time. Who can tell them what this huge monster in front of them is? I saw. Under that moonlight. The dark and sticky smoke condensed into a huge figure more than 10 meters high. The black robe covering its body moves automatically without wind, and the smoke and clouds surrounding it seem to be alive, constantly winding and circling. The most eye-catching thing is the huge black scythe that seems to be able to easily take away life. The strange textures carved on it sparkle with a dazzling light, which is breathtaking. The cold breath almost covered the entire sea area. Where the huge figure was, the water below seemed to be afraid of it, and began to sink downwards, with waves coming one after another. This is the fruit's semi-awakened form, the embodiment of Shinigami, and I named it the true form of Shinigami. Luodi was suspended in Shinigami's body, closing his eyes. Everything around him seemed to be under his control. It's a very magical feeling. And when he opened his eyes again, he looked forward. In his eyes, Hurst and Hind, who were standing there, had undergone earth-shaking changes. That is soul. At this time, Luodi could already see their souls. The Shinigami scythe in his hand also has new abilities, cutting off souls and sealing souls. As for controlling and manipulating those souls, Luodi can't do it yet. But he has a feeling that it is not impossible to control the soul when the Shinigami fruit is fully awakened. By then, he will be Big Mom's nightmare. Fruit restraint is no joke. Run! The cold breath kept approaching. The suffocating feeling of approaching death and the fear from the depths of their souls made Hester and Hender wake up at the same time. They turned around hurriedly, not even paying attention to the boat rolling under their feet. Step on the moonwalk and fly away. All they could think about was escape. You can run as far as you can, even if your physical strength is exhausted, even if you may die in the sea. They had a feeling that if they stayed here, a fate more terrible than death would be waiting for them. But can they really escape? The answer is yes, there is no escape. Luodi controlled the huge Shinigami, almost teleporting, and appeared in front of Hester and Hender in the blink of an eye. The huge body shrouded them in a shadow that even the moonlight could not reach. Do you know? There is something called a soul, and I can peel it out. Shinigami spread his left hand, and the surrounding black smoke gradually gathered to form two black balls with a strange aura. Call out. Immediately afterwards he waved his left hand, which had a tracking effect. Even though Hester and Hender tried their best to dodge, they were still hit. Strip cross! The black ball passed through their bodies. A black cross formed behind them. Ropes made of smoke and clouds held them captive. That's my body, then this is weird and absurd. Hester was horrified to see his body falling into the sea, and he seemed to be still bound by a cross. What's going on? Like him, Hender also saw the same scene. Then he turned his head to look at Hester, and was shocked to find that the other person's body. Hester, why is your body transparent? Hester also looked at him, with a look of horror on his almost transparent face. You too! At this moment, a strong wind mixed with the power of the Shinigami blew, and Hester and Hender felt as if their bodies were being pricked by countless steel needles, with pain coming one after another. Next, I will cut off the connection between your soul and body and seal you. Don't worry, you can come to this world again. It won't take long, just treat it as a sleep. Immediately, under the horrified eyes of Hester and Hind, Shinigami swung the scythe and cut off everything. When Luo Di returned to the top of the lighthouse again, he only felt a pain in his body. Sure enough, using the Shinigami true body in a semi-awakened state is quite physically demanding, and the burden on the body is not that great. Moreover, the strength of Shinigami's true form is incomplete. However, even so, Shinigami's true form is still very strong. During this process, Luo Di figured out a lot of things. In order to peel off the soul, you must enter the form of Shinigami's true body, but it may not be necessary if the fruit is fully awakened. The medium for cutting off souls and sealing souls is the Shinigami scythe. Now, the demonic power in Luo Di's soul has awakened. Therefore, what can cut off the soul and seal the soul is another part of the soul residing in the Shinigami scythe. The underworld in his hand cannot be done yet. However, it should be soon. Wait another year until the fruit is fully awakened, and I will go find Auntie to try the water. And among the houses under the lighthouse, Kunoka slowly opened his eyes, and there was a deep thought and imperceptible horror deep in his eyes. With his ability to see and hear, he naturally sensed what was happening outside. The powerful strength shown by Luo Di actually reminded him of the great Captain Roger again. Holy Land Marie Joa. The supreme power of world government, 5 elders. Saint Jago Satan slowly put down the phone bug. Lost contact. Saint Topman Witchley looked serious. After all, they are former CP9 members. They were all removed because they were seriously injured and their strength declined severely. It is not surprising that they lost to the Shinigami pirates. Izambalin vs. Nasuro's sage holds a katana. It's just right to die, they haven't been very peaceful recently. Shepherd 10 Peter squinted at several people. Since the Shinigami pirates have not been eradicated next. Marcus Mazshen clasped his hands behind his back and shook his head. Now that the situation has just stabilized, there is no extra power to deal with them. This matter has been put on hold for now. So next, let's talk about the captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebird Pirates, Porgas D'Acid. The intelligence officers working undercover in the Whitebird Pirates seem to have collected some incredible information recently. The next afternoon, 3 small sailboats with a length of more than 10 meters were quickly heading towards Upside Down Mountain. And each ship actually flies a different pirate flag. They seem to be in peace and don't interfere with each other. If the ship were all pirates, then this scene would be difficult to understand, but they are bounty hunters from Whiskey Mountain. The pirate ship was snatched from the fledgling pirates. As for the group of pirates, they have become part of Cactus Island. The pirate ship in the middle of the 3 ships. Bow. Send actually said that they captured the Shinigami pirates and let us pass. It's ridiculous. They betrayed us not long ago. Who would believe such a thing now? Mr. 5, Jim, put his hands in his pockets, facing the sea breeze, looking coldly ahead. Since you know he is lying to you, why are you still there? Miss Valentine's Day, Michita was spinning the small yellow and blue striped umbrella in her hand with an exaggerated smile on her face. Of course we will deal with him and his 3 accomplices together. Of course, it would be great if we could meet the Shinigami pirates. Jem pressed his nose, flicked it, and with a boom, large splashes of water exploded on the sea's surface. Ah, don't forget, I want to share half of the bounty. After saying that, Michita touched the ground with her feet. Her body was as light as a balloon, then slowly rose into the air, and finally landed on the observation deck. Coming! Luo Di jumped from the top of the lighthouse and landed just in front of Kanokas, who was reading the newspaper. Dr. Kanokas, do you want to come with us? We are short of a doctor on the ship. Kanokas glanced at him sideways and finally shook his head. This is my home, and without me, Laboon might never be able to see the people it wants to see again. Even if I told it before that those people would never come back, but the bond between Laboon and them is indelible after all, and I am relieved. I will stay with it until the end of my life. This morning, Kanokas told Luo Di the story of Laboon. Luo Di listened quietly, even though he knew everything. When the sails were raised again, the Shinigami set sail successfully. They were traveling in the same direction as Jem and Machida. What will happen when pirate ships that are strangers to each other meet on the sea? There is no doubt that it is war. Ah ha ha! They are coming! Machida turned her little umbrella and landed lightly next to Jem. As expected, he is from the Shinigami pirates, but that guy Send is not here. Jim picked his nose and kept rubbing it, waiting for the Shinigami to approach. Most of them were killed, but that's good. It saved a lot of trouble. That guy named Whaley is quite troublesome. Machida looked at the Shinigami with unmistakable excitement. Not far ahead. Lafayette pressed his hat and looked sideways at Luo Di. Captain, do you want me to go and deal with them all? Luo Di tapped his index finger on the table and said after a while, knock them unconscious and capture them. We just need 2 experimental subjects. Winnie's emotional fruit needs to be developed, and those 2 people come just in time. Yes. Lafayette nodded, then flapped his wings and flew forward. And his figure looked very abrupt in the empty sky. Jim noticed his arrival immediately. I can't wait any longer, but I came just in time, so let me sink you, nose fantasy cannon. I saw him pointing the newly kneaded black ball at Lafayette, rubbing it with his fingers, and quickly ejected it. Lafayette's perception was extremely sharp, and he ducked away. And just at this moment, several more black balls popped up at the same time, blocking almost all the paths he could avoid. Tisk, that's so disgusting. Lafayette looked embarrassed for the first time, not because he was afraid of its power, but because he was really disgusted. Boom! A violent explosion accompanied by thick gray smoke completely engulfed Lafayette's figure. TCH, with this little ability, I thought you were so powerful. Jem took back the pistol he had just taken out. It seemed that it was no longer needed. If the crew of the Shinigami pirates is this capable, then he will definitely get the bounty. However, when the black smoke dissipated, his expression instantly froze. Because Lafayette is intact. Ah ha ha ha, this is not dead, Mr. 5, just leave it to me. Wait, don't. Jem just stretched out his hand to pull her back, but Machida jumped into the air and floated into the air. When she fell again, her body carried a terrifying weight that made people feel fearful. 10,000 kilograms of weight! She is a very cruel person when facing her enemies, which leads her to do many things without remembering the consequences. Just like now, she forgot that this was the sea. As long as her attack was avoided, even if her body weight was reduced in time, the inertia would be enough to bring her into the sea. But the reality is also like this. Lafayette flapped his wings, turned his body slightly, and easily escaped. He even smiled at Machida when he passed by her, like a gentleman. Boom! Machida fell into the sea. MR5, Gulu, save me! At this time, she couldn't laugh anymore, with a look of fear on her face, and kept struggling, but she couldn't swim, and when she was about to sink, a pair of sharp claws grabbed her shoulders and dragged her down. Out. Lafayette, look what good things you have done. This is the captain's experimental subject. He almost drowned. Lafayette shook his head. I was about to fish her out. Who knew you didn't trust me so much? Hello? Jem's angry voice interrupted them. I tell you, let go of Valentine's Day. As he spoke, the muzzle of the pistol was pointed at Lafayette, and it was filled with explosive air bombs. Bang! He fired, and an air bullet that was difficult to detect with the naked eye shot towards Lafayette at a high speed. Lafayette spun his body, using his armor as armor, and came to him with one air bomb after another. Originally I wanted to kill you, but after all, it is the captain's mission. As he spoke, he had already drawn his cane sword. How is it possible? I am a user with explosive fruit abilities. There is no way I can fail in my mission. Jem roared angrily, and at the same time as the pistol was thrown out, he also kicked out his right foot quickly. But Lafayette just raised his hand slightly, and the cane sword covered in armed colors blocked his attack. Boom! Jem is an explosive man, and any part of his body can explode, including his right leg. I'm going to die now. How is that possible? Nothing is impossible. There are too many things in this world that you don't understand. If I hadn't met the captain, I probably wouldn't be as armed as I am. Then, under Jem's horrified gaze, Lafayette slashed out with his sword. When Jem woke up again, he found himself in a dark room. Powerless. There was a sense of powerlessness all over his body. Suddenly, he heard a very low and desperate female voice. How can I still live in this world? A woman like me should die 100 times, 1,000 times. Damn it, this sound is all too familiar to Jem. Isn't that the sound of Miss Valentine's Day? When he turned around to look, he could only see a blurry outline because the room was too dark. But he still recognized it. Hey, Valentine's Day, wake up! However, no matter how much he shook and shouted, it had no effect on Machida at all. She fell silent in her own world, unable to extricate herself. Damn it, what did the Shinigami pirates do to Valentine's Day, and where did they get these sea tower stone shackles? Tala. Accompanied by the sound of slight footsteps and the sound of the gate opening, a figure walked in slowly. Relying on the light coming from the door, Jem could clearly see the person coming. It was Shinigami Luodi. What did you do to Valentine's Day? Luodi's right hand unconsciously rubbed the handle of Huang Quan's knife and chuckled. It's nothing, I just changed her mood. Of course, it's not just her, you will do the same in the future. However, there may be some risks. After all, rapid changes in mood may make people become crazy. At this time, Jem also calmed down. After all, his hands were bound by the sea tower stone, and he had no strength or ability to use his abilities. It should be impossible to escape. What exactly is your purpose? Emotional transformation? No wonder Valentine's Day can get so weird. But how did he do it? In short, Jem has a lot of doubts now. Shinigami Luodi is full of secrets. He is not as harmless as he seems on the outside. My purpose, 7 warlords of the sea, Crocodile. Oh, by the way, you may not know, he is your boss behind the scenes, also known as Mr. Zero. After saying that, Luodi walked out slowly, regardless of the shocked Jem. He came here to observe Machida's condition. Now it seems that everything is fine. The first half of the Great Line, the ancient island. Because the island maintains the appearance of the dinosaur era, there are not only dinosaurs, but also many large beasts, and even the vegetation is very huge, so this island is also called a small garden. At this time, a big battle was taking place on the island. The violent shaking was enough to stir up the forest. In an instant, dragons fled and birds flew away, all seeming to be afraid of the behemoth that caused the war. Near the volcano, in a circular venue formed by years of fighting, 2 giants are fighting hard. But it's not Tori and Broggy. It was Dongli and another giant, Elbaf's first warrior, Auditory. But he saw Dongli holding a shield in his left hand, blocking Auditory's arm made of boulders. With an angry roar, he slashed down the huge sword held in his right hand. The air whined with huge force. But this sword was a bit painful for Auditory, who was like a fortified city, but it did not cause any damage to his muscles and bones. He took the blow forcefully, and the giant mace he held in his right hand also smashed down with all his strength. At this moment, the volcano erupted, and the 2 giants simultaneously withdrew their strength and slowly stopped. At the outermost edge, Broggy and the giant pirates under the Mega City Pirates stood up and walked towards them, who were watching with great interest. As he walked, the earth shook and the mountains shook. This is the giant's powerful physique. Outside the small garden. The Shinigami has just docked. Listening to the sounds coming from the mountains and forests, Aiko held the blowing wind and flying snow tightly around her waist. Brother Luo-di, there must be no monsters on this island. The loud noise caused by the simultaneous movement of more than a dozen giants has reached the coast. Moreover, even the sea water and the Shinigami shook slightly. Not only Aiko has this doubt, but also Simonton and Lafayette. This sound is so weird, like the sound of some giant creature moving around. Luo-di smiled and waved his hand. The giant city pirates led by Audrey should be here, and that noise was also made by them. As soon as these words came out, the three of them looked stunned. Even Winnie, who was hiding behind, came out, her pretty face showing a little excitement. It turns out to be Uncle Audrey. They had stayed in Elbaf for nearly a year and had a good relationship with the giant warriors, especially Audrey, who could be considered half of the Shinigami pirates' crew after all. Moreover, before eating the devil fruit, Winnie was very sensitive to emotions and knew the nature of those giants. Very bellicose, rough in appearance, and fierce in appearance, but in fact he is still very simple deep down. They are just extremely passionate about fighting. Luo-di glanced at a few people and then asked, "Which of you is left to guard the ship?" Forehead. Silence. It's like Cambridge tonight, like crows flying over. It seems that no one wants to stay. The ancient island has a pure and primitive beauty. There are all kinds of strange plants and rare birds and animals on the island. In fact, everyone wants to experience them. Seeing that everyone was silent, Luo-di also noticed their thoughts and pointed to the record pointer on Lafayette's hand. "Don't worry, the recording pointer also needs to store up magnetic power. I'm afraid we have to stay here for a while. We can all take turns watching the ship later," etc. If I remember correctly, the time the magnetism is stored here seems to be 1 year. Luo-di's face froze for a moment, but looking at everyone's expectant expressions, he still didn't say anything. Finally, Winnie volunteered to stay and watch the ship. She wants to develop fruits and become stronger. In 6 years, she has completely integrated into this pirate ship, and the bond between them has become deeper and deeper. She doesn't want to hold everyone back anymore. But considering that Winnie was too weak, Lafayette also stayed. Moreover, Luo-di usually made suggestions when developing fruits, and Lafayette accompanied them to develop them. Emotions can subtly change a person. As long as a certain emotion is continuously exerted on that person's character will also change into the shape of that emotion. Long-term anger will give rise to an irritable character, and fear will give rise to a timid and fearful character. So, what will worship and trust lead to? Now, what Winnie has to do is to tame Gem and Machita and let them become the fighting force of the Shinigami pirates. Wow, this is the dinosaur recorded in the book. Aiko hid behind an ancient tree, covering her mouth with a look of shock. In front of them, 2 7 or 8 meter long dinosaurs were fighting each other, and everything was in a mess. Some of the nearby thick trees were broken by their destructive force and collapsed in all directions. His physical strength can be seen in Imadara. "Actually, with your strength, you can kill them easily." Luo-di looked at Aiko and Simonton with a smile in his eyes. "But..." Then he looked at the towering volcano in front of him. "We have arrived at our destination, let's go!" A flash of light flashed in Simonton's eyes. "Are those 2 legendary giants here? I'm really looking forward to it." Circular venue. Broggy and Dongli did not separate as usual, but sat together very rarely. Eat meat together, and drink wine together. Of course, these wines were all brought by Audrey. "Hey, I didn't expect that we would all be defeated by you." In the past 10 days, Dongli and Audrey played a total of 10 games, losing 1 and drawing 9, but they still lost 1 game after all. Dongli took a deep sip of wine, but instead of being disappointed, there was a smile on his face. This is the character of Elbaf's warriors. He brings glory when he wins, and he will be convinced and send blessings when he loses. However, there are always regrets. Even if he has to lose, he still hopes to lose at the hands of Broggy. It's great to have such a powerful warrior like you in Elbaf. Dongli and I have seen giants from there before, but unfortunately, it's a bit unsatisfactory. Broggy took a bite of the meat, looked at Audrey, and smiled sincerely. These days, not only has Dongli played with Audrey, he has also played 10 games with Audrey. Likewise, 1 loss and 9 draws. Audrey took out a small newspaper and read the contents, with a flash of excitement and nostalgia in his eyes. Senior Dongli, Senior Broggy, you are joking, but actually it is all thanks to Captain Luo Di. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be able to do what I am now. By the way, this island is relatively remote, so the 2 seniors may not have seen these newspapers before. With that said, Audrey handed them the small newspaper in his hand, while he was still talking about Luodi's deeds. Captain Luodi was offered a bounty of 200 million belly just after he went to sea, which is enough to be equal to the 2 seniors. When he sets foot on this great sea route, what did the captain say? Aren't elves a creature of the forest? How do you say the second part of the sentence? Coming. Both Dongli and Broggy have a reward of 100 million, and the 2 of them combined are indeed equal to Luo Di. But he may not know that his emotional intelligence is quite low when he talks like this. However, it is understandable that the giants only know how to fight. Just when Audrey was scratching his head and thinking, a familiar voice came from behind. Isn't Jinlin a creature in the pond? It turns into a dragon when it encounters a storm. Audrey, you should read more books. Don't be a reckless man who only knows how to fight. Luo, Captain Luo Di. It's Captain Luo Di. Audrey turned around immediately when he heard the familiar voice. What came into view were 3 familiar figures. The leader among them was Luo Di, and standing on both sides were the naughty little girl Aiko and the gambler Smanton. Hi, Uncle Audrey, long time no see. Aiko waved his hand, with a good smile on his face. This look was all too familiar to Audrey, and she must be thinking of some bad idea. Fortunately, Dongli and Broggy came to his rescue. Are you the Luo Di that Audrey mentioned? They have lived on the island for nearly 100 years, and have long forgotten all about writing, not to mention that the newspaper is too small to read. At this time, the giants from the giant city pirates scattered around also ran over. Captain Lodi! Little Miss Aiko, long time no see. Smanton, I lost to you last time. Let's make another bet. I will definitely end up winning this time. Meeting again will always bring some beautiful memories and the joy of getting together. Luo Di and the 3 giants Dongli, Broggy and Audrey sat around the fire. Tell each other some experiences. At the end of the story, Luo Di suddenly raised his head, with a fighting spirit on his face. Dongli, Broggy, let's spar! As soon as these words came out, both Dongli and Broggy were stunned. After a while, Broggy laughed. Come on, you are brave. Audrey and his crew tell us about you every day. As the strongest soldier in Elbaf, I have long wanted to meet you. Dongli's eyes widened, then he smiled. Jia, don't listen to his nonsense. Elbaf's strongest warrior is clearly me, little dwarf. I'll fight you first. Broggy was unhappy, raised his giant axe and was about to attack. It's me, I come first. Dongli also picked up the giant sword and shield and glared back. Okay, let's have a fight. Whoever wins will be the strongest warrior in Elbaf. Luo Di didn't expect this to happen. Audrey, who had been silent, put down the wine jar and made a suggestion. Senior Dongli, Senior Broggy, you 2 can go up together. Captain Luo Di is very strong. Silence. 1 together? The 2 looked at each other. Dongli put down his weapon and his expression instantly became serious. There are rules in our village of Elbaf. For example, if we have a dispute with others in the village, we will accept the judgment of God Elbaf. God Elbaf will always protect the right party and let the right party be judged. People who do the right thing live. Broggy took over. Dongli and I had a dispute over something. Now this island is our duel ground. The right person will win, but there is no winner yet. The implication is that they will not join forces. Luo Di stared at them quietly for a long time, with an unprecedented seriousness on his face. "This is an internal issue within your village and your personal private matter, and I am now declaring war on you. If you still think that being an Elbaf warrior is an honor, then discuss it with me head on." As soon as these words came out, the whole space seemed to become depressed. Although it is a provocative method, the effect is good. After a long time, Broggy and Donley looked at each other and nodded solemnly. "As soldiers of Elbaf, this is our honor. Since you said so, we will accept your challenge. However, we will also use our strongest blow to prove to you that the name of Elbaf warrior cannot be insulted. The most powerful move in Elbaf's Spear Overlord." Luo Di thought of this immediately. "Okay, then I will take this blow from you in my name of Shinigami." This is what he was waiting for. The circular duel field was formed by two powerful giants fighting for hundreds of years. At this time, Luo Di and the two legendary giants were separated from each other. The air became heavy with tension. At the outermost edge of the duel arena, Audrey and the members of the giant city pirates he led stood there quietly, looking at the three people in the arena intently. Aiko stood on Audrey's shoulder, clenching her fists, and kept shouting, "Come on," but because of Luo Di's request, she didn't shout out. Simonton pushed up his glasses, feeling confident in Luo Di. That night, he could clearly see the battle under the Twin Gorges. There is no doubt about Luo Di's power. In the circular duel arena, the battle is about to break out. Donley raised his huge sword. Broggy raised his huge battle axe. "Try the strongest spear in Elbaf's legend!" "Ah!" Roars came from their mouths, resounding throughout the ancient island with the glory of Elbaf's warriors. The unyielding will reaches the sky. The red light ignites the battle axe, and the blue light smudges the long sword. "Hegemony!" Donley and Broggy struck down with all their momentum, strength, and the glory of being Elbaf warriors. Two powerful shock waves burst out, forming two corridors on the ground, and they would eventually meet at one point. A more powerful shock wave is formed, wiping out everything. "As expected of Elbaf's spear, it's really strong." Luo Di took a deep breath. The underworld was filled with blood and glowed with a red and black halo. Its fighting intent was not concealed at all. "Restrain yourself, your current strength is not enough to cope with it." Luo Di glared at it fiercely, and then a domineering aura full of chaos surrounded it. It's a mix of arms color with a hint of conquerors. This is what Luo Di realized after summoning the Shinigami true form. The armor's domineering energy penetrates the body, and the conqueror's domineering energy penetrates the soul. At that moment, he realized how to embody conqueror's dominance, and also understood what dominance was. Now, although there is only a hint of conqueror's domineering energy around him, that is enough. The power of Shinigami, armed Haki, and conqueror's Haki all converged on Huang Quan. The powerful power made the sword tremble slightly, and it could be seen that Huang Quan seemed to be unable to bear it. Luo Di called this new force composed of a mixture of various forces destruction. "Destroy!" A slash of the sword seemed to be able to open the sky, and the dark thunder of destruction surrounded the dark slash. Wherever it passed, the space was slightly distorted. Bang! The huge shock wave formed by the Overlord collided with the slash filled with destructive aura, and the entire island began to tremble. The powerful aura rushed straight into the sky, and the clouds that were originally covered with dark clouds instantly dissipated. The dinosaurs and giant beasts on the island seemed to be frightened and fled towards the edge of the island in panic. "How is it possible, actually dash?" In just a short breath, the huge shock wave completely dissipated, and the power of the Overlord no longer existed. The dark slash driven by the thunder continued to move forward without losing momentum. "Failed!" Dongley and Broggy looked at each other, their weapons broken, just like their current moods. "What a terrifying pressure! Is that what the captain showed? It was so strong that even the sky changed color." On the Shinigami, which was shaking violently with the sea water, Lafayette stood on the bow and looked at the center of the island, with a look of horror in his eyes that could not be concealed. It was indeed Captain Luo Di who caused it. Even the animals on this island were panicked. Winnie stared blankly ahead, her eyes a little dazed. She felt that the waves on the island, filled with fear, were getting closer and running toward the coast. Inside the cabin of the Shinigami, an empty storage room, Jim and Machida looked at each other. Although they couldn't see each other, they had been partners for many years and knew exactly what each other was thinking. What is that? It's such a terrifying smell. I feel like my soul is trembling. I have never seen such a powerful existence. Who is that person? Is there someone fighting Shinigami Rodi? It's very possible that if everyone in the Shinigami Pirates died at the hands of the other party, then we would have a chance to escape. Actually, I think Miss Winnie is quite nice. Well, if you put it that way, I also feel she is pretty good. How about forgetting it? What should I say? Then the room fell into silence. Unknowingly, they seemed to have different views on Winnie. In the center of the ancient island, there is a circular dual field. Dongli and Broggy were lying on the ground, breathing very weakly. The huge incisions spanned the entire chest. No blood flowed from the scar, but it looked charred black. Occasionally, there will be a subtle flash of black light, which is the remaining black thunder of Miyajan, tainted with an aura of destruction. This scar will follow them forever, just like the scar Kazuki Oden left on Kaido. Even the best medical skills cannot erase it, and even the strongest physique cannot repair it. Behind Dongli and Broggy, there is a piece of charred land that stretches for hundreds of kilometers. It is bare and occasionally flashes of black light. The ancient trees are no longer there, and all the creatures in it are dead. All around, the shocked members of the giant city pirates finally came to their senses and cheered. The two captains of the giant pirates who once roamed the sea were defeated. Moreover, the whole process only used one move. Luodi's victory made them feel proud. After all, the Megaho pirates are affiliated with the Shinigami pirates. From a certain perspective, Luodi is also their captain. Unlike other giants, Audrey had no joy but a touch of disappointment. It turns out that when Dongli and Broggy fought with him, he didn't use all his strength. Elbaf's spear is such a terrifying move. But Audrey stared at the only tall figure standing on the field. A flash of determination flashed in his eyes. Captain Luodi, I will definitely follow your steps closely and never embarrass the Shinigami pirates. Wow, Brother Luodi, you are so powerful. That move just now was even stronger than mine, no, more than 10 times. Unlike others, Aiko rushed over and hugged Luodi, her pretty face flushed slightly with excitement. She was really happy for Luodi. Luodi rubbed her head and smiled. Okay, you can become this strong in the future. However, whether it was his misunderstanding or not, Aiko's forehead felt slightly cold. At this time, Smanton also came over, first praised Luodi, and then looked at Dongli and Broggy and sighed. Hey, I didn't expect them to be so strong. I thought about competing with them before, but now it seems. I'm afraid there's no chance. Luodi shook his head. The wound is not too deep and does not touch the vital points. It will heal with a little healing. Then he waved his hand at Audrey. Audrey, lend a hand and let Patry treat their wounds. Patry is the ship's doctor of the giant city pirates, and is also a very good friend of Aiko. Audrey nodded, and then several giants lifted Broggy and Dongli, and followed a beautiful female giant with brown curly hair towards Dongli's station, where her medical kit was placed. After the giant left, Luodi nodded to Smanton and Aiko. Let's go back to the ship first. This island is very chaotic right now. You might encounter dinosaurs if you take a few steps. If you want to explore this island, wait until tomorrow. Just when he was about to lift his feet and prepare to leave, Aiko seemed to lose his footing and stumbled forward. Luodi reacted quickly and grabbed her. Just as he was about to say something to her, he found that there was no color on Aiko's face, and her lips were white and trembling slightly. Could it be? Luodi quickly touched her forehead, and it felt cold, which was completely outside the range of normal body temperature. Could it be that he was bitten by something? He suddenly remembered that there seemed to be many poisonous creatures on this island, and he would be bitten by them if he was not careful. Captain, what's wrong with Aiko? Smanton looked at Aiko, who was obviously a little uncomfortable, and his face changed slightly. Show Patry! Luodi looked serious, slightly anxious, and immediately chased Patry in the direction she left. La 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 la, I am a little expert in collecting herbs. I won't wait until dawn. In the forest, a 1-meter-tall gray-haired little rabbit was jumping around with a small bamboo pole on its back, its ears swinging back and forth, and humming a famous ditty. But the little rabbit suddenly stopped. Why does the little garden feel a little different today? It seems like something is missing. The furry little hand scratched his head, and his big eyes looked confused. After a while, it shook its head again. Well, forget it, it's still important to collect herbs. However, just after taking 2 steps, the ground suddenly began to vibrate, getting stronger and stronger, and the sound became louder and louder. When I looked closely, I saw a group of dinosaurs running in front of me. Oh, that's bad. The little rabbit was startled. Has it been discovered? It's better to hide away first, and then talk about it. Then it kicked off the ground with both feet, jumped 5 or 6 meters high, and landed on a thick branch. And this also allowed it to avoid the collision of those dinosaurs. Huh, it's so dangerous. Fortunately, this rabbit can jump higher. When the last dinosaur ran away, it jumped down again. Touching his chin, he lowered his head and speculated. Are those 2 giants in front? That's not right. Their fighting locations are fixed and should be in the same direction as me. What are you looking for? On the contrary, what's wrong? What, you, who are you? The little rabbit was startled again. It has lived on the island for more than a year. Except for the 2 giants who fight every day, it has never seen any other humans. But who can tell it what is happening to the human being in front of it? Lafayette had the same idea. What's going on with this talking rabbit in front of me? The huge threat that erupted in the center of the island forced the dinosaurs and giant beasts to flee to the edge of the island. By coincidence, a group of dinosaurs came to the bay where the Shinigami docked. Lafayette thought about it and thought it would be good to use them as experimental materials for Winnie, so he prepared to catch 2. As a result, because the group of dinosaurs had just been frightened and their emotions were extremely unstable, as soon as Lafayette approached, they turned and ran away almost at the same time. The next step is that the dinosaur runs and Lafayette chases it. It seems that the dinosaur is about to be unable to fly. Suddenly a gray rabbit jumped out in front of him. The point is, this rabbit is no ordinary rabbit. It walks like a human, talks like a human, wears clothes like a human, and even carries a small basket on its back. Has the rabbit become a sperm? It is undeniable that there are many species in this world, and this is the first time Lafayette has seen this one. Or is it a human who ate some kind of devil fruit? Or the rabbit who ate everyone's fruit? In short, Lafayette is in some confusion now. You, who are you? The little rabbit was startled by Lafayette, and its ears drooped back, just like its heavy heart. I heard from people in the tribe that humans are terrible creatures. If they are discovered, they will be captured and sold to other people. What should I do? Wait online, I'm very anxious. Right, run. The little rabbit raised his head slightly, only to see that Lafayette was a little sluggish. It nodded secretly. It's an opportunity. Then it tentatively tapped its right foot back, but Lafayette still didn't respond. Well, okay, done. Run. Then it immediately turned around. Its right foot was already on the ground, and its body was about to jump out. But his ears were grabbed by a pair of big hands, and his body slowly became airborne. TSK, the talking rabbit is really strange. Since the group of dinosaurs ran away, I will reluctantly use you as experimental material. With that said, Simonton turned around and left while carrying it. But the little rabbit continued to struggle. Damn human! Where are you taking this rabbit? Let go. The more it struggled, it found that the big hand holding its ear was getting tighter and harder, and it seemed that the ear would be broken by it in the next moment. Immediately, it stopped struggling and gradually became more honest, just shedding tears and sobbing quietly. Woo woo, Boss Cat Viper, Sister Garrett, Sister Wanda, I know I'm wrong, come and save me. But no matter how it calls, it's useless, no one responds to it. Aboard the Shinigami. A very rare look of anxiety appeared on Luodi's face. What to do? After Patri's inspection, she found a slightly purple scratch on Aiko's foot, which she speculated was scratched by some kind of highly toxic plant on the island. And her medical skills were completely helpless against this kind of poison. Even if an antidote could be developed, it would take at least a month or two, but Aiko definitely couldn't wait that long. Even with the protection of Luodi's Shinigami power, it can only barely slow down the spread of poison. After all, Aiko couldn't last more than a few days. Are we going to find the witch on Drum Island? But without the eternal pointer of Drum Island, can we really arrive in a short time? On the Grand Line, it would be difficult to move forward without a pointer, and on this basis, it would be even more difficult to reach a specific island. He is not Wong Luffy, he just arrived at Drum Island when Nami fell ill. But we can only make a desperate move. If I continue to stay on this island, I'm afraid I'm really hopeless. In the end, Luodi decided to set sail as soon as possible. Even if there was no recorded pointer, he would find a way to find the island. And relying on his excellent knowledge and flying ability, he still has a certain chance of finding Drum Island. Although it is very slim, he must try his best. Aiko is his relative who has been with him for 10 years. By the way, where's Lafayette? Only then did Luodi remember that Lafayette seemed not to be on the boat. Winnie, who had just placed Aiko, looked at the slightly messy jungle path to one side and said slowly, Mr. Lafayette said when he left that he went to catch dinosaurs. Until now, that seems to be Mr. Lafayette, but why does he seem to be holding a rabbit in his hand? On the side, Smanton also nodded. It's true. I saw a tall figure walking slowly on the dense forest path, holding a cane in his left hand and a gray rabbit in his right hand. It's indeed Lafayette. Luodi nodded, but a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. But why is he holding a fur tribe in his hand? The fur tribe generally lives on Zou Island on the back of the elephant owner. And that island is in the New World. Why are there fur tribes here? Luodi was puzzled. Wait until Lafayette returns to the ship. Simonton took the lead to greet him, poked the gray rabbit on the forehead, and said curiously, Where did you catch this thing? It looks like a rabbit, but its structure is a bit like ours. These limbs, these proportions, and these clothes, tsk, it's really strange. Lafayette threw it on the deck and shrugged. I don't know, but you may not know that it can also speak human language. Can you still talk? Simonton suddenly became interested. Come on, little one, tell me something. Hey, wait, where are you going? Whoosh, whoosh. The little rabbit's eyes were closed tightly, his nose was twitching, his hands and feet were on the ground, and he slowly crawled forward. Until I hit a hard object. Its nose even came closer to sucking fiercely, and it kept mumbling in its mouth. Whoops, upright arrow, downright arrow, upright arrow, this is it. I have been looking for it for 2 whole years, and today I finally found it. Before it could get too excited, Luodi kicked it out with his feet, his face turned livid. What the hell? Although I know that rubbing against fur people is a sign of friendship, but there is no need to hold their legs while rubbing and sucking, right? Are you sure this guy is not a BT? Ha 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 ha! Lafayette and Simonton looked at each other and laughed. They didn't want to laugh, but they couldn't help it. Captain Luodi actually showed that expression. It's so funny! Winnie held the little rabbit in her arms and rubbed its furry little head. No way, this little bunny is so cute. However, the little rabbit didn't appreciate it. He pushed Winnie's face with both hands, struggling constantly and expressing his dissatisfaction. Human women, stay away from this rabbit. Don't you know that this rabbit hates women the most? Hearing it speak, Smanton stopped laughing and moved closer, with a look of surprise on his face. This little thing can actually talk. It's amazing. Did he eat a devil fruit? The little rabbit turned his head and glared at him with a vicious, but non-aggressive look. What devil fruit? This rabbit is a great for race. Also, this rabbit is not called Little Thing. This rabbit is called Tuji. Do you remember clearly? It's just a human. This rabbit's name is Tuji. Do you remember clearly? It's just a human. For some reason, Tuji is no longer as depressed and scared as he was when he was first captured. Instead, how should I put it, he is a bit arrogant, or wants to blend in. And its slightly arrogant little expression made Winnie's girlish heart overflowing, with a hint of nostalgia mixed in. The dean's mother once gave her a birthday gift, a rabbit stuffed doll made by herself, but now, it has disappeared in the fire, along with the dean's mother. Hey, what's going on with you, a human woman? Isn't it just because this rabbit hates women? I'm crying now. You're too fragile. When Rabbit G saw Winnie suddenly lowering his head, a tear overflowed from the corner of his eye. He crossed his hands with a look of disdain, but he could feel a trace of panic from his words. No, it's not because of you, it's just that I thought of some past events. Okay, I'm going to take care of Sister Aiko. Winnie put Bunny down, wiped her eyes, then turned and walked towards the room. Tuji looked at her back and felt a little guilty. What's wrong with her? Did what I said go too far? At this point, Smanton flicked the back of its head to force it to turn around. You little thing, don't think too much about it. People only feel sad because of some past events. Don't ask about it, otherwise it will only bring back worse memories. Then he scratched his head again. But having said that, I seem to have heard a fur tribe somewhere. Well, where? By the way, in the Sabaody Islands, the black market there seems to have marked the price of fur tribe, and the base price seems to be 700,000. Lafayette came over, stroking his chin and looking at Tuji. 700,000, to be honest, I didn't expect you to be so worthless. If I had known, I wouldn't have brought it back. There was a trace of regret in his voice. At this time, Luo Di had regained his composure and shook his head slightly. Okay, don't worry about it, Lafayette, we must set sail now. Ah? Lafayette was a little surprised. Captain, the record pointer hasn't finished storing its magnetic power, right? I'm afraid if you leave without permission. Simonton patted him on the shoulder. You don't know, Miss Aiko is poisoned, and Patry won't be able to cure her in a short time. What's more, there is no other doctor on this island except her. We must set off quickly to find doctors on other islands. Luo Di nodded, his eyes full of determination. When the time comes, pay attention to the weather changes. That island is a winter island, and the weather will suddenly get colder when you get closer. Although it is a bit unreliable to rely on the weather to find your way on the Grand Line, there is nothing we can do about it. We must arrive at the island. Lafayette was silent for a while, and finally nodded heavily. Simonton also consciously packed up the anchor and prepared to set sail. Just when everyone is busy doing their own things, Rabbit G moved his body with small steps, slowly approaching Luo Di. Actually, this rabbit is a doctor, a very powerful doctor, but I can show it to you. Luo Di lowered his head slightly and looked down at it, a little surprised. Are you a doctor? Are you sure? Seeing Luo Di talking to him, Tuji was even more excited. Well, this rabbit has lived on this island for more than a year. I have studied many plants and animals. I can detoxify most of the toxins. Give me a chance. I will definitely be able to help you. Luo Di took a deep look at it. It's very sincere, it doesn't look like a lie. But why? Why does the rabbit in front of them want to help them? This is obviously the first meeting between them, right? Luo Di didn't understand. Tuji seemed to notice his doubts and explained with his fingers. Actually, we fur tribe can transform into moon lions by looking at the moon during the full moon. But this rabbit, I found that among the many fur tribes, I am the only one who cannot do it. At this point, its voice was obviously a little low. I once doubted myself whether I was a fur tribe, but everyone encouraged me and didn't exclude me. Sister Garrett, Sister Wanda, and even the cat Viper, everyone was very kind to me. However, I can't stand myself like this. Since then, I have been studying medical skills and read all Uncle Sanyang's medical classics, but I still haven't found a way to crack it. Besides, I haven't seen any other fur tribe like me from those books. Since there is no furry principality, I decided to leave there and go to the outside world to find a way to crack it. In an ancient book I accidentally flipped through, I discovered the ancient island. There are various medicinal herbs on the island, which is just suitable for my research. It took me nearly a year to finally come here. But 1 year later, I still haven't found the answer until I met you. Luo Di pointed at himself, a little confused. This is none of his business. Well, it's you. Tuji kicked off his short legs, jumped up suddenly, hugged Luo Di's neck, and kept rubbing. Karuchia! It is expressing its love for Luo Di. Luo Di pulled it off and held it in his hand with a serious look on his face. Tell me, why me? Whoosh! Tuji's nose twitched a few times, but he shook his head. I don't know, but I feel that your breath smells very good, and there seems to be a mysterious power that can help me. It is an intuition that has been surrounding my mind and keeps me close to you. So weird? Luo Di looked at it for a while, until Tuji felt uncomfortable, and then he put it on the ground. What exactly is the power? After thinking for a long time, Luo Di finally had the answer. Then bunches of thick and sticky black energy thin lines poured out from his forehead and finally condensed into a black ball the size of a fist, floating on his palm. Is this it? Whoosh! Tuji twitched his nose and gradually came closer. Suddenly, his big eyes flashed with a strange light, and his little head nodded repeatedly. Yes, this is the taste, this is what I want! Luo Di nodded, then waved his right hand, and the black ball sank directly into Tuji's body. Its body also underwent earth-shaking changes at this moment. His original height of 1 meter skyrocketed to about 4 meters, and the gray fur on his body gradually became longer and blacker. His 2 big bright eyes were dyed black, and there were actually 2 red sickles carved in the center of the pupils. There is also a circle of black smoke surrounding it, with black thunder occasionally flashing inside. It is hard to imagine that the black thunder swallowed by the smoke can be so conspicuous even though it is the same color. Very strong. Tuji never thought that he could be so strong. It feels like one punch can kill a dinosaur that usually can only stay away from it. Moreover, its brain was very clear at this time, and its body did not lose control as the tribesman said. It's just that the color seems a little wrong. The clan members are all silver-white, so why is he pure black? In fact, it also knows that this is not the so-called Moon Lion transformation, but there must be some consolation. Well, let's call it Dark Lion transformation. However, the ability given to it by Luo Di seems to be 100 times more terrifying than the Moon Lion transformation of the tribe. Even the current turned into extremely destructive black thunder. Try it! Immediately it held its right hand empty, and the black thunder flashed continuously and condensed into a thunderball, and then it waved its right hand fiercely. The lightning ball turned into a black stream of light and hit the dense forest almost teleportingly. Boom! The lightning ball suddenly shattered due to external force, and countless black thunders erupted. In an instant, trees collapsed and the land was sunken. When the thunder dissipated, under the thick black smoke, a circular site with a radius of about 4 meters came into view. The flat land was completely sunken, and the top was bare. So strong! Tuji couldn't help sighing, then he kicked off his feet and jumped more than 10 meters high. What surprised him even more was that he could fly. Wow, this rabbit will be a flying rabbit from now on! Below. A strange smile appeared at the corner of Luo Di's mouth. You'll feel better later! Finally, after flying 3 times in the sky, Rabbit G returned to the boat. Just when it was about to try its other abilities, it saw Luo Di hooking his fingers. Its body quickly became smaller, and countless thin energy lines poured into Luo Di's forehead. Hey, it hurts! When 2G completely returned to normal, he suddenly curled up on the ground, feeling extremely uncomfortable with the severe pain in his limbs. Luo Di walked up to it in 2 steps and smiled. Little rabbit, using those abilities is not free. How long it can last depends entirely on your physical strength. Look at your little arms and legs. It's good if you can last for 1 minute. But, one thing to say. The little thing in front of me was perfectly integrated with the demonic power, even surpassing Aiko, who has been in contact with the power of demons for nearly 10 years. It's incredible. Maybe you can take it. And he seems to be a very skilled doctor. Of course, everything depends on whether it can cure Aiko. On deck, Simonton and Lafayette looked at each other and saw a look of shock in each other's eyes. I didn't expect that little thing to turn into such a terrifying monster. Isn't it all down to Captain Luo-di? Hey, I kind of regret it. I would have known better not to eat devil fruits. If the captain's ability could be exerted on me, wouldn't I be stronger than that little rabbit? It's useless to talk so much. It's better to develop the fruit quickly, otherwise I'm afraid you won't be able to defeat that rabbit in the future. TCH, what should we do next? Are we still setting sail? Wait a minute, didn't you hear the rabbit say it was a doctor? Okay. Inside the house, Tuji, who is barely able to move, is diagnosing Aiko's condition. After a long time, it nodded, its voice a little weak. The whole body is cold and the breathing is weak. This should be caused by the cold grass. Generally speaking, if you are cut by it, you will freeze to death in less than half a day because the body is getting colder. But there is a magical power in her body that is preventing the poison from spreading, but it can only by half a day longer at most. But this is enough time. There happens to be an antidote for this rabbit. As long as I feed it to her within today, she will be completely cured after a few days of training. Furthermore, after this rabbit's research, if someone is cut by cold grass and then healed, the patient will have a certain degree of cold tolerance. Hearing these words, Luo-di secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it can be cured. As for the cold resistance, it's a blessing in disguise. Okay, go get the antidote now, show me the way, and I'll fly you there. Saying that, he put on his Shinigami robe. Luo-di grabbed Tuji Destiny by the scruff of his neck and flew straight out of the house. Hey, wait, can't you let me take a break? Really? After everyone and the rabbit left, Winnie closed the door to prevent any strange insects from flying in. Tuji said that all kinds of creatures on this island are very dangerous, even if they are small bugs, a bite from them may be fatal. In the afternoon, Luo-di, who had just given Aiko the antidote, stood on the deck. Looking at the huge figure on the hundreds of meters giant ship approaching, he asked, "Why are you here?" Audrey scratched his head and said with a naive smile, "Isn't this little girl Aiko poisoned? Even if Captain Luo-di doesn't need our help, we still have to do our part." Patry echoed, "Aiko is my best friend. If something happens to her, how can we just sit back and watch?" Luo-di nodded helplessly. The giants are really a stubborn race. Okay, but I'm lucky. Aiko's poison has been cured. Now I just need to rest for a while. By the way, how soon do you plan to set off? Audrey sighed. Hey, it takes a year to record the pointer here to store the magnet, otherwise we wouldn't stay here forever. What? Beside, Lafayette, who was drawing a chart, opened his eyes wide. Doesn't this mean staying on this island for a year? Luo-di ignored him and took out a record pointer from his pocket. You can leave now if you want. This is the record pointer of that little thing 2G. It has been on this island for more than a year. This pointer has been saved a long time ago. I don't know where it will lead. 2G is determined to follow Luo-di. So I gave him all the record pointers. Audrey refused without even thinking about it. Captain Luo-di, this pointer is too valuable. We took it. You. Luo-di waved his hand and interrupted him. We, of course, have other ways. With that said, Luo-di threw it away, and the recording pointer fell into Audrey's hand very accurately. This? Stop it, my goal is not to record the island pointed by the pointer, so for me, the pointer is useless, and the useful pointer happens to be on our ship. But this made Lafayette on the side a little puzzled. Useful pointers? What is the captain hiding? Why doesn't he know anything? Forget it, just follow along and see. The two left one after the other, which made Audrey a little confused. What to do? Patry rolled her eyes at him. Captain Luodi asked you to accept it, so just accept it. Cabin. Storage room. Squeak. Machida and Jim raised their heads at the same time and looked toward the door. Through the light that just passed through, you can actually see a look of expectation on their faces. They seemed to be expecting someone to arrive. However, when they saw the person clearly, a look of disappointment appeared on their faces. TCH, Luodi, how long are you going to lock us up? Yes, you can't keep us locked up forever. Luodi raised the corners of his mouth slightly and spoke in a suppressed voice. I'm here to get something, Alabastus permanent pointer. Don't tell me you don't know. Jim looked at him deeply, and after a long time, he asked seriously. I want to confirm one thing first. Was it you who caused the previous commotion? Luodi did not deny it. Call. Jem took a deep breath. I do have a permanent pointer from Alabasta, but are you sure you can defeat Mr. Zero? No, defeat Crocodile? Mr. Zero is Crocodile, which Luodi mentioned before. After being singled out, Jem couldn't help but become a little suspicious. After all, Miss All Sunday is usually the one who conveys information, and Mr. Zero, the boss, has never appeared in front of them. Plus Crocodile is actually in Alabasta. That's for sure. The person speaking was not Luodi, but Lafayette, who had just arrived. Jim glanced at him, then stood up slowly. There is a box in my bag, and it contains the permanent pointer. Lafayette nodded, then groped around and found a black box. Once opened, there was indeed a pointer inside, with Alabasta written on it. Captain, you are indeed Alabastus permanent pointer. Luodi nodded. And when he and Lafayette left, he left a message. It's not that I look down on Crocodile, but after a failure, he put all his energy on an unknown foreign object and wasted for more than 10 years. How strong can he be now? Since Crocodile was defeated by Whitebeard, he has come to the first half of the Grand Line, trying to find Pluton and gain the power to control the world. But after all, he paid too much attention to external objects and ignored the development of his own strength. Alabasta. Rainy ground. Mr. Five and Miss Valentine have lost contact. The previous news is indeed false. After all, it is impossible for the Shinigami pirates to fall so easily. Nicole Robin looked at the information in her hand and murmured to herself. 2 years ago, she came to the Grand Line and reached an agreement with Crocodile. Since then, she has been codenamed Miss All Sunday, and she is also the center to contact other members. A few days ago, news came from Whiskey Peak that the Shinigami pirates had been eliminated. Nicole Robin didn't believe it. Later, Mr. Five and Miss Valentine went to check the situation. If nothing else, there will be an accident. Sure enough, Robin completely lost news about them for several days since then. In fact, it would not be a big deal if they died. However, since Mr. Five and Miss Valentine are temporarily in charge of the Whiskey Mountain area, they will also escort the plunder and the bounty obtained in exchange. In order to deliver those funds in the shortest time, they have an Alabasta Eternal Pointer in their hands. Then, it is very likely that Luodi has obtained this pointer. Their next goal. This reminded Robin of the newspaper from more than half a month ago, and the encounter 6 years ago. It seems we need to inform Crocodile immediately. Robin's goal is the blank history 800 years ago, Crocodile's goal is ancient weapon Pluton, and their common goals are historical texts. Half a month later. The ancient island, near the volcano. A dozen giants and the Shinigami pirates were sitting together. Today will be the day when Luodi and the others set off. And this was also the grand farewell banquet held by Tori, Broggy and the giants of the Giant City Pirates for Luodi and the others before leaving. Placed in the middle were several freshly roasted dinosaurs, with some of Winnie's secret sauce sprinkled on top. The special aroma of the meat and seasonings hit your face. Luodi ate the meat and looked at Audrey. Aren't you leaving? In fact, it stands to reason that Audrey should start as soon as he gets the pointer. However, Audrey shook his head. Captain Luodi, my current strength is still too weak. I am going to settle down for a while. I will ask Senior Dongli and Senior Broggy for advice. In fact, it's good to practice meditation for a period of time. Then Luodi looked at Dongli and Broggy. What about you? Are you going to keep fighting in the future? Dongli and Broggy looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. After the battle with you, we are relieved. We will return to Elbaf later. Even if the god of Elbaf will bring judgment, we will face it together. At that time, if we are all still alive, the giant pirates will re-enter the Grand Line, and we will once again pursue the unfinished dream 100 years ago. It would be nice to be relieved. Luodi nodded silently, then raised his glass. Come on, let's all join together. Cheers. All worries are cleared away at this moment. Only joy and joy remain. Two legendary giants who had been fighting for nearly 100 years finally reached a reconciliation at this moment. That's right, they used to be each other's most trusting partners. Time flies. In the afternoon, the Shinigami headed out along the shore. Dongli and Broggy stood on two sides with serious expressions. When you come to this island, the biggest reason why you can't reach the next island is right ahead. The giant island-eating monster, the island-eating goldfish. Audrey, who was behind them, was confused. Two seniors, what are you talking about? Dongli didn't look back, still staring ahead with all his concentration. Watch it! It's coming! As soon as he finished speaking, the Shinigami, which had just sailed a short distance away from the island, began to shake violently. It seemed that some monster was about to rush out from under the sea, and the sea water splashed back and forth violently, causing waves to splash. What's going on? You must have encountered a Poseidon class, right? Simonton's hand at the helm froze slightly. Lafayette, who was beside him, had already drawn his cane and sword, and his body was full of fighting spirit. Is it the Poseidon class again? Aiko rushed out of the room, blowing the wind and flying snow, already unsheathed and ready to go. Inside the house, Winnie looked outside through the window, with a trace of worry on her face. This time, it seems a little different. 2G, who was lying on the chair and sleeping soundly, woke up suddenly, his eyes widened. Wow, what's going on? I'm scared to death.